All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you're new. Hold on. Sorry about that. My microphone is not well. Are we okay now? I was like crazy peaking there for some reason. Is it not okay? It's still not okay? All right, hold on. Hold on. How about now? Is it better now? Oh, okay. Hold on. This is well, this might be a problem. How about now? It's better now? Is it still not working? Great. I have no idea how I sound either. Sounds like I'm talking through a Pringles can. Oh, shit. All right, I know what it is. I know what it is. Hold on. How about now? We good now? Good now? Audio good? Audio check? Sorry about that. Dude, okay. I got to figure this out because there's like a oh, hold on. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. Everything was perfect and good to go, and of course, there's going to be some audio issues. I'm just glad I figured it out really quickly. There's a second, for some reason, on my mixer here. There's microphone two, microphone one, and microphone two. I don't know what microphone two is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it's connected to. I don't know what's going on there. I accidentally unmuted that one and not my actual microphone. So I apologize. So we're going to start over. All right, guys, welcome back to the stream. Surprise Saturday stream. I actually thought it was Sunday. I woke up thinking it was Sunday. I did everything normal like it was Sunday. I realized 10 minutes ago it's actually Saturday. I'm just kidding. That's not really what happened. I'm intentionally doing this Saturday stream, but sorry for not showing up yesterday. But we have certainly some interesting topics to talk about. And thank you guys for letting me know what was going on with my microphone there. Very unfortunate. We are going to be talking about a new potential rumor. It seems to be a little bit all over the place. So I'll, let you guys know what's going on, keep you up to date with it. And we're definitely going to be talking about the implications of this and why there may be some truth to this, but also why you have to be careful and not trust it 100% because we are, after all, in rumor territory. We're also going to be talking more about Horizon Steel Frontiers. We have a bunch of new information there to go over as well. I'll explain why I have that members lounge up on the side there, by the way, in just a moment. But we do need to talk more about Horizon Steel Frontiers because it does seem like there's a chance this game is actually going to come to PS5. And maybe we'll check out some of the gameplay. I didn't realize when they announced this game that they actually released a gameplay trailer, which I'm not going to lie, I think looks pretty good. I got to say, it looks better than I would have expected. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the Game Awards. Jeff Keighley announced that on Monday he's going to be revealing the Game Award nominees, which I'm sure will make for some interesting discussion. We will talk a little bit about our predictions, I guess we could say, of like the 6 games that we believe will be nominated for Game of the Year and what other games we think might get awarded. But I do want to say that if you look to the side of the screen here, you can see the Black Ops 7 members lounge. I'm not going to play Black Ops 7 because I did not buy Black Ops 7, but we're going to be doing a members lounge after this stream concludes, and it's basically going to be a reaction type members lounge where I'm going to be watching some videos that people are putting out who are playing Black Ops 7. Basically, we're going to be trying to find out if Black Ops 7 is an absolute dumpster fire or not. Okay, that's what the members lounge will be today. So please look forward to that. And obviously, I want to use that as encouragement for you to consider becoming a channel member or gifting memberships. And yeah, if you want to support the channel, do either of those things. Drop a super chat, drop a direct donation. We are fan funded. Any support you guys show the channel is very much appreciated. So thank you for that. You make this possible. And I also want to ask you to please take a moment before we dive into these super chats and discussions to hit the like button. Hitting the like button lets me know you enjoy the content and it helps with YouTube's algorithm. But we have a super chat from New Soul 9. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, MBG, in case you started on your keto journey or planning too soon, I recommend a company called Keto Chow. They give the sweet taste, but without the sugar. Well, I appreciate you recommending this company, New Soul 9. As of right now, I'm not planning on doing keto. I have been trying to cut back on the sugar. I've been doing a very bad job of that, if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, when it comes to keto, that's keto is very intense and it's very difficult to cut out carbohydrates completely. Is something that I've tried a couple of times and I have just failed miserably. I feel as though I am just the type of person where it's like I need some type of carbohydrate. It doesn't have to be like sugar, like pure sugar, obviously, but some type of healthier carb. But I'll try to keep that in the back of my mind if anybody I know, perhaps New Soul 9 decides that they want to, go on a keto journey and Keto Chow. Never heard of them before. Gaming Survivor, the members lounge is going to be us reacting to Black Ops 7, a couple of videos I picked out, trying to determine if it's a dumpster fire or not. Because there's been a lot of conversation going around about Black Ops 7. I didn't buy it. I'm not going to play it. But I figured, we could try to decipher that. We could try to figure that out. I'm going to try to, when I do members lounges, have some type of topic. That's basically what I'm going for here. But we also have a direct donation from Perfect Image who says, hey, MB Gangsta, after the earnings call, see that there was no talks of PC earnings. Then the Steam box. I had a Eureka. PlayStation is pulling back because no money. I had a Eureka moment. Sony's pulling back because they ain't making no money. They ain't got nothing. We will discuss this. Yeah. A lot of people are, anytime we've talked about PlayStation and PC, people tend to get a little bit emotional about it. If not emotional, they tend to jump to conclusions. These two things are expected. And we're going to try our best not to do that here today, mainly because there's something that I think a lot of people are forgetting about. If not forgetting about, not really aware of, I guess. And we're going to discuss that. But yeah, I woke up to a rumor today that comes from a source that a lot of people, if I'm just being blunt about it, do not trust. So I'm not here to vouch for this individual. My understanding of this individual is that they do seemingly have sources and they do reporting based off of those sources, but they also give a lot of opinion and they do a lot of speculation. And my assessment overall is that those two things seem to get mixed up quite often. And are not necessarily separated as well as they should be. And so because of that, it creates, a lot of friction. And, it leads to a lot of people looking at that source and saying, I don't believe you, which is totally understandable. So I am going to emphasize before we get into this to obviously take what we're going over here with a grain of salt. We have discussed Sony and PC, PlayStation on PC very, very extensively here on the channel. And I'm going to obviously give you my thoughts on what I think is going on here, if there's any truth to it. And we'll get into that, okay? But I just want to make sure to clearly emphasize that this is a rumor. This is not confirmation. You should not walk away from this stream assuming that Sony is no longer supporting PC. Because in fact, as we go over this rumor, you're going to realize it's not that they're done supporting PC. It's just they seem to be potentially changing their strategy of how they're going to pursue PC going forward. So we're going to start here. This was the very first thing I saw popping up 6 hours ago on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit. The title reads, Jez Corden says he heard from a, quote, very good source that PlayStation is probably pulling back from PC for their tentpole single player games, while live service games remain day and date. And so, what I'm actually going to do is play this clip for you. It's not too long, but so you can hear exactly what he had to say. And before I do that, we have Schmidt GT coming in. Schmidt, thank you so much for that, buddy. He comes in and drops 5 membership gifts for you guys. I want to see some W's in the chat for Schmidt.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for getting us started today. Yeah, we're going to shoot for 50 members today. We'll see if we can hit that. It'd be great if we could. If we hit 25, I'll bring Boss in. We'll feed the beast. I just can't have him in here right now because he's getting crazy these days, guys. I'm not going to lie. It's gotten to a point where I can't even talk to you about the topics at hand because he's getting so crazy. So as soon as we hit that 25 mark, I'll be sure to bring him in. We'll give him his treats. We'll make him happy. And Schmidt, thank you again for dropping 5 membership gifts, man. But I'm going to play this clip for you. Again, this is Jez Corden of the Xbox 2 podcast. This is what he had to say.
PlayStation doing day and date and doing PC.
Right.
So like, and then I got off on a tangent about, the social aspects of PlayStation, whatever. And the reason Steam has become popular is because, at least partially, I think, is because it is easier to go viral with Steam. And you would think, logically, that PlayStation will want to tap into that, right? And make their franchises go viral by being on Steam and being on a bigger platform. Or like, a bigger platform in total, not necessarily bigger by itself. But I actually heard the complete opposite today from a very good source.
About
that PlayStation probably is pulling back from PC,
really?
And also that the cross-play buttons and the PlayStation PC iconography is from like outdated old builds and is never going to be used. But,
interesting.
But I don't know. I mean, it's not like I don't actively investigate what PlayStation's doing, because it's not my beat. But sometimes I do get PlayStation information incidentally sometimes by researching Microsoft stuff for my actual beat. But it does seem like the games that PlayStation released on PC didn't move the needle for them at all. Partially because they were launched so late, but maybe they've used that as evidence that they shouldn't go any further, and that they should remain more Nintendo-like in their approach and keep things more exclusive. Except service games. I think service games will go day and date eventually. I know that they do already. Day and date for service games. Yeah, day and date for service games already. But I do think like those sort of tentpole single player games like GOTY and stuff, maybe they just don't come to PC, or like they come to PC like years later and stuff.
All right, so that's the clip that basically spurred on this rumor. And we do have a bit of an update. Apparently, Jez Corden did chime in here and I guess provide some type of clarification. And so let me bring that up really quick. So he says here, I just want to add that these were very vague rumors and just podcast discussions and speculations, not a serious report or leak. It's my personal opinion that it would be good for Sony to do day and date, speaking purely mathematically, but a few people saw me say that and told me what they had heard otherwise. I don't do PlayStation reporting, and it shouldn't be used as a source of info for it beyond basic opinion / speculation, unless it is up on Windows Central. So Jez Corden in the stream said that he heard this from what he said, a very good source. Now, I can understand how, from that point forward, if you listen to the clip I just played, he goes on to then speculate. But the thing that is, I think, worth noting here is that and look, I have no problems with Jez Corden whatsoever. I want to make that clear. But I just can't help but think, when you are doing a report for Windows Central, that's some kind of leak or something along those lines, you are referring to sources. You should believe what I'm telling you about A, B, and C because of my source X, Y, and Z, right? Which is normal and totally fine. So I do find it strange that in this instance, he says he heard it from a very good source, but is basically telling you that we shouldn't take that source seriously. That's effectively what he's saying. And that's fine. I think that what he's trying to avoid is this blowing up into a bigger thing and it kind of all falling back on him. You know, like, for example, if this doesn't happen and Sony does go day and date with PC, this is going to look, you know, because of the way it's being reported, it's going to look bad. And I understand that. So I'm just trying to separate the worm from the apple here, where on one hand, we have somebody who says that they're not covering PlayStation stuff, right? That's not his beat, as he puts it, which is true. But on the other hand, you know, he's saying that he heard from what he calls a very good source that PlayStation is pulling back on their PC stuff. Now, my whole thing with this, the reason why I do believe this to potentially be true is because this brings me back to about 2 months ago. 2 months ago, Sony did their corporate report. They do an annual corporate report, and essentially what this corporate report is like it's a professionally created like video and presentation with a bunch of graphs and a bunch of charts for their shareholders. And the whole point of it is to convey to shareholders their strategy, how much money they're making, where their money's coming from, where their money's going, and what their focus is going forward. And the reason why this is so important to bring up during this conversation is because I don't want people to fixate too much on the rumor itself, because we have the person who put the rumor out here now kind of somewhat backtracking and saying, look, it's just mostly speculation. Fine. However, apparently, from what I've been reading across the internet, there seem to be a few people who are hearing through the grapevine, supposedly, that this is what's going on inside of Sony. They're going to be backtracking and pulling back on their single player. Going to put a pin in this for a moment, though. We have a super chat from Gord, and he says, MBG, I've got the flu and fell asleep with YouTube on my TV. Woke up at like 4 a.m. drenched with sweat, and there you were with Mrs. MBG in a Wolverine costume. It sounds like a fever dream, Gord. I'm sorry. I don't know whether to be sorry or to say you're welcome, but either way, I'm glad that I was there for you in that moment, me and Mrs. MBG. And thanks for being a member, dude. You can only see that because you were a channel member, so I do appreciate it, buddy. And thank you for the super chat. But going back to what we were just discussing, I do think that it's important not to fixate too much on the rumor itself and look more to what Sony themselves are saying, what they have said. Now, if you want, you can go back and you can find quotes from Herman Holst, from Jim Ryan, from Hiroki Totoki in previous years, like 2021, 2022, 2023, where they make it clear that we're still putting our games on PC, but we're doing it at a certain cadence with a gap in between. However, what we're going to be focused on is what Sony had to say most recently. That's why I'm bringing up their September corporate report, because that corporate report is the most recent information we have, and also the most recent, I guess you could say, overall strategy that Sony is implementing right now and plans to implement at least for the next fiscal year. All right. And if we go back to that corporate report, and actually I'm not going to bring it up on screen because I don't have it ready to go on screen, but I am going to refer to a post. Did I really exit out of that? Damn it. All right, well, I'll scroll back and find it. But essentially what you need to know about this corporate report, to break it down, Sony emphasized console sales. And I know that sounds like, well, what do you mean? Of course they emphasize console sales. Sounds like a no-brainer. But the reason why we have to emphasize that is because if you look back at Sony's corporate report from 2024, they did kind of the opposite. In their corporate report for 2024, rather than emphasizing console sales, they were actually emphasizing multi platform gaming and putting their games on multiple platforms and expanding beyond the console. That was their main emphasis in their 2024 corporate report. And people at the time obviously were like, whoa, man, like what's Sony trying to say here? Is Sony trying to say that they're going to go day and date? Is Sony going to go full multi platform? And of course, that's, after that, we saw Spider Man announced for PC. We saw The Last of Us Part 2 make its way to PC. And we know that their live service games are going day and date on PC. But we also saw Helldivers 2 go to Xbox. And so, when people saw that, it was just a kind of natural assumption that, well, there it is. I guess Sony's going day and date. I guess they are, you know, they're going to be following that direction that Microsoft is going in, just a lot slower, not all at once. And yeah, I thought the same thing. But that's what makes their most recent corporate report that much more important, I would say, to highlight. Because I have a report here from Push Square that was released on September 15th, which is when this corporate report came out. And they say here, much has been made of PlayStation and its multi-platform releases. In a world where Microsoft has started releasing its entire portfolio on PS5, many suspect Sony to be following the same path, especially after unexpectedly porting games like Helldivers 2 to Xbox and LEGO Horizon Adventures to Nintendo Switch. But interestingly, in its latest corporate report, Sony has removed, quote, game revenue beyond console from its list of, quote, strategically emphasized indicators. While this featured prominently in 2024's version of this same exact document, the platform holder now cites the following as its key measures going forward. Number 1, PS5 hardware units sold globally. Number 2, PlayStation monthly active users. And number 3, total gameplay hours. This aligns with comments the company has made in the past where it talked about a greater focus on engagement, but it clearly understands that hardware sales are its primary path to monthly active users. There's no real reference in the documentation to explain why Sony has removed game revenue beyond console as a strategically emphasized indicator, but it's absolutely worth noting that as of fiscal year 2024, multi-format releases accounted for only 2% of PlayStation's overall revenue. So, yeah, this is why when I saw this rumor today, I'm like, this could potentially be the first indication that what we were speculating, and that speculation again is founded in what Sony themselves put out to shareholders and what they put out to the public. The speculation is Sony might be kind of walking this back a little bit, right? And a lot of people don't want to hear that. A lot of people have been, hedging their bets, understandably so. I don't blame them on Sony going day and date on PC. And, we just saw them announce a PC oriented PlayStation monitor, and they announced speakers as well, right? The Pulse Elevate. So, it's understandable that people are going to be a little bit confused right now. Like, which is it? Are they pulling back on PC? Are they going day and date? Like, are they just going to stay in this awkward place in the middle? And when I look at everything, right, when I look at this rumor from Jez Corden, him claiming it's from a very good source, and this is what he's hearing kind of behind the scenes, but he doesn't seemingly want to be at the center of this thing kind of taking off, which again is understandable. I look at Sony's corporate report and I'm like, guys, is Sony basically signaling that they're kind of moving away from what they've been doing? Because one year they're all about multi-platform. One year they're trying to brag to their shareholders about how multi-platform they're going to be. They go a whole year putting PC ports. They dropped Spider-Man as soon as they could on PC. They even put Helldivers on Xbox. And then now they say, yeah, that only accounted for 2% of our total revenue. And now we're focused on PS5 again. It's easy to read too much into this, but Nick, you're saying goofed up with my super chat not showing up in the chat, but if I try again, it says I already own this item. That's odd. Nick, my recommendation would be try refreshing. It is very frustrating Nick, the amount of times I see people struggling, like they just want to support the channel, they want to drop memberships, they want to drop super chats, and it's literally YouTube itself getting in the way because of glitches, because of bugs, because of things just not working the way they're supposed to work. So I'm sorry to hear that you're having trouble with that. My recommendation would be to try to refresh, even leave the stream and come back for just a second. Maybe that'll fix it. But either way, I do appreciate you trying to drop a super chat. No, you did not do no Gaming Survivor. I chose to just nix it because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't like it. It's not you, it's not anybody on there. It's I'm not a fan of YouTube trying to turn YouTube into other things. Uh and that's all it is. It's the same reason I don't have a Discord, you know. So I just want you to know it's not anything you posted or anything anybody else posted. It has nothing to do with that. And I appreciate you guys using it, but I just want YouTube to be video content. I'm not trying to make it a Facebook or an Instagram or a Twitter, you know what I'm saying? Or a Discord. I just want it to be YouTube. But I do feel as though it's understandable why people are going to be kind of confused right now and people are going to place their bets. And here's what I think. All right? Well, before I tell you that, Nick was able to get a super chat to go through. Nick, thank you so much for that, buddy. With a $10 super chat, he says, a while ago, many of us said going PC or to other platforms was a waste of time. Dollars seem to show that. As I've said to the point of being annoying, exclusivity matters and always will. That's true, Nick. I do remember you saying that, and you certainly weren't the only one. Nick, that's the big thing that I really want people to kind of pay attention to here. I'm not saying believe me. I'm not saying believe Jez Corin. I'm not saying believe some random person. I'm saying look at what Sony presented to their own shareholders. What they presented is after multiple years of really, I mean, let's just face it, kind of going outside of their comfort zone and surprising people and going in on PC and going into these different directions, even going as far to put a game on the Nintendo Switch, right? Which nobody saw that coming. Doing all these different things, even putting a game on Xbox, for God's sake, I mean, that's like the unthinkable, right? They do all these things, and what they have to show for it is 2%. 2%. Now, if the important thing to understand here is you got to take that 2% and understand that is money. It's not like it's bad, that the amount of money that they made, it's like in isolation, it is more money. But it's all about, the risk associated with it. How risky is it to potentially shake up your entire foundation, your entire strategy that's been the founding strategy for the last 3 decades? I mean, logic would tell you only risk doing something like that if there's a lot to gain, right? If there's a lot to gain. And what we clearly see here is, when it comes to the ROI, when it comes to how much they actually gained from this, pretty inconsequential, in the bigger picture. And so the question we were left with naturally is, so like, is Sony happy with that 2% and they want to get that 2% to go to 5%? Or are they looking at that 2% and kind of saying, this just isn't worth it? Well, when you consider how much Nixus probably costs to run, I'm sure they're not a cheap studio to keep running, and how much money probably goes into every one of those PC ports, plus the marketing. I mean, I had this feeling based off of early this year, I think it was, right? I think it was early this year. Now, keep in mind, Sony's fiscal year ends in March. Sony seemingly rushed Spider-Man 2 to PC, and they also had The Last of Us Part 2 lined up for PC. These are two, I need to really emphasize this. These are two of Sony's biggest, absolute biggest games that they will release for the entire generation, and they are attached to their biggest franchises. And when we saw the data, when we saw the concurrent player count for both of those games, there's just no way around it. They were underwhelming. They were not doing significant numbers to any degree. Most people saw the numbers and were like, that's it? No, Chris, I did not buy Black Ops 7. The members lounge is not me playing Black Ops 7. We're going to be trying to determine if Black Ops 7 is a dumpster fire. We're going to be reacting to some videos of people talking about Black Ops 7. So stay tuned for that, Chris. Slop Ops. I mean, literally, it seems like it is that, from what I can gather. Not entirely. We'll save it for the members lounge. And Petrov with a super chat says, no more PC ports. Keep up the good work, MBG. Well, not so fast, Petrov. Thank you for that, by the way. I don't think anybody should walk away from this conversation today, again, assuming no more PC ports. However, I think you should walk away from it with the potential notion, I should say, that Sony may actually decide that, hey, when it comes to our big single-player tentpole titles, those are going to be reserved for the console. And honestly, I think most people you ask, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. When we go back to what Jez Corden said when he was giving his speculation, he was talking about the idea of Sony's games going viral, as he put it, through Steam. And I understand exactly where he's coming from because I think that's exactly what drove Sony to do this and try this in the first place. If you're Sony, you probably assume like, hey man, if we drop Spider-Man 2 within 12 months, within 15 months at most on PC, on Steam, right? It's Spider-Man 2. It's the second best-selling game for PlayStation the entire generation so far. That's how desired this game is on a broader level, right? Sony rushes it to PC, and maybe the fact that they rushed it is what caused lower sales. It had a lot of technical problems and needed patches, but it was out there, right? That was the fastest they ever put a game on PS5, brand new AAA, and then boom, right to PC. I mean, when they saw a concurrent player count of what was it, like, I'm not even going to try to guess. I'm just going to look it up. Steam concurrent. For Spider-Man 2, yeah, wow, okay, that's less than I thought. I was going to say it peaked at 30,000 concurrents. It only peaked at 28,000 concurrent players. And I just feel like that is kind of the opposite of going viral. That is the opposite of having your game explode. Would that number be drastically different if it launched the same day as it did on PS5? Probably, maybe. It's hard to say, right? It's really difficult to determine because, as I've said before, that's one of those situations where you're not going to know unless you just do it, right? Sony won't know how many copies Spider-Man 3 could potentially sell, how many more copies it could sell, unless they drop it day one on Steam alongside PS5 and PS6. But there's a risk in doing that. And that risk is the same one that Microsoft took, which is once you open Pandora's box, it cannot be closed. Once you say, hey, we're doing this, you set the expectation. You have now set the precedent. You can try to walk that back. You're not going to be able to do it. You know what I'm saying? This is one of those situations where you're either going to go all in or you're not. And I feel like Sony was basically this close to going all in. And they got closer and closer where they're like, okay, we'll do 3 years. We'll do 2 years. Now we'll do 1 year. And the results that they saw, ironically, is it turns out the games that had a longer window, right? The games such as Days Gone, it didn't have that long of a window, but I'm thinking Days Gone, God of War 2018, Spider-Man 1, Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon Zero Dawn. These games that had a much longer window did better on PC than games like Spider-Man 2 going within a year. And I've speculated myself before that this is because of the novelty factor. I think a lot of that upfront, wow, look at how well our game is selling on PC. God of War 2018 doing well. Days Gone doing well. I mean, Days Gone doing well on PC was kind of surprising because it's like, really? Days Gone is the one that's going to do well? And it's like because there's a novelty factor. There was absolutely a novelty factor. And once people got used to it, once people expected it, that's when they were like, okay, well, yeah, exactly. You see Returnal's numbers on PC, you're saying you almost cried. It's stuff like that where it's like, is this worth it? Did you guys remember when they released Sackboy: A Big Adventure? Look, I'm not saying anybody at all was asking for that game on PC, but Sony looked at that and they're like, we should at least try, and they got like 500 concurrent players. It's like, dude, this is painful to watch. Like 500, bro? What is going on? So this isn't me trying to tell you guys Sony's not going day and date. In fact, here's what I'll say. My take on this, the whole idea of Sony pulling back on PC, I don't think they're done with PC. I think they're far from done with PC. Okay? I think Sony's just going to change their strategy with PC. I think Sony's going to say, look, we're still going to put live service games day one. We're going to do our own launcher for our single player games. I think that's exactly what they're going to do. And I think that's what they've been prepping for. And I think that's the play, you know? I think it has to be the play at this point. If you're Sony and you look at that 2% and you're like, well, can we get that 2% but higher profit margins off of it? That's what Hiroki Totoki's all about, the higher profit margins. And we have Silent Spartan with the $20 super chat. Thank you for that, Spartan. He says, I don't see them abandoning exclusives for their tentpole games. It makes no business sense to do so. The PC is a superior experience, and it is a win for consumers and publishers alike to abandon exclusivity completely. And that's the thing, Spartan. A lot of PC-oriented players, they want to see Sony go day and date. Well, because people who play on PC, it's exactly that, right? A lot of people who care about that PC gaming experience and have invested in it, they do so because of that exact reason. Like, I want the best versions of games. I'm willing to pay for it, but I want the best, right? And I want I want the absolute highest frame rates, the absolute highest resolutions, the absolute highest ray tracing. This all makes sense. And people who make that type of investment, it also makes sense that when you see a company like Sony, where you're like, yeah, we're putting our games on Steam. We're not doing all of them at once. We're not taking games like Ghost of Yotei and doing it day one. But right now, I assure you, like every PC player who cares about PlayStation games or every PC player who bought Ghost of Tsushima is 100% anticipating that they're going to be able to buy Ghost of Yotei on PC a year from now, 2 years from now, maybe even 3. But they'll wait. That if there's one thing that these ports have proven is that people will wait, right? There is a group of people out there that they didn't buy the console for it. They're not going to buy the console for it. They will wait. And this is why I believe Sony's play is going to end up being their own launcher. Now, I want to make something clear. I'm not necessarily saying that's a good or a bad idea, and I'm certainly not saying that's going to succeed for them. What I am saying is that I think Sony is going to at least try it. You know, they did not rip the Band-Aid off of going day and date with their tentpole single player games on the Steam yet outside of live service. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to stagger it where they're like, okay, well, let's do our own launcher, see if we can increase those profit margins, maybe even increase the overall percentage, of multi-platform sales. Nick, you're saying it's not a win for consumers if everything is everywhere. There's no damn variety of platforms. I want consoles to offer different experiences to make games that highlight the hardware strengths. Yeah, this is the tug of war that I think you continue to see where, for me personally, it's been difficult to fully let go of the notion of exclusivity because, that's what I know. You know what I mean? Like, I grew up with these different consoles and these different platforms being defined by their exclusives. And like pretty much, yes, these companies saying like, hey, you see this game right here? Looks pretty good, right? Well, you're going to have to buy this console because this is the only console that's going to offer it. For Sony, ironically enough, it wasn't even a first party game. For Sony, it was Metal Gear Solid 4. Right, my PS3, when I eventually got it, it's like, this is my Metal Gear Solid 4 machine. Now, granted, it did allow me to have an appreciation for a piece of hardware that I otherwise would have had nothing to do with, more than likely. Same thing with the 360, I remember finding out Left 4 Dead was going to be only on 360 for consoles. And I'm like, dude, like I'm there, like 100%. You know, and when Gears of War 1 came out and people were losing their minds, it's like, and you obviously look at Nintendo. So exclusivity, I always maintain that I think there are pros and there are cons. And I think that the pros and cons are usually fairly obvious. You know, a pro of exclusivity is it gives a specific brand and a specific platform and identity. Plus, it, alleviates I guess you could say the stress, if not the stress, just the amount of extra optimization that will be needed to go into a PC version or a multi-platform version of a game. And so therefore, the game can probably, in some ways, like when I look at something like Ghost of Yotei, I'm like, dude, this game is really taking advantage of the PS5 Pro, like better than pretty much any other game I've seen. I'm not saying that couldn't have been achieved if it wasn't exclusive, but I get the feeling that I'm able to play it at the exact time I am with that level of optimization because of that. They are not making a PC version. They're not making an Xbox version. They're not making a Switch version. However, the downside of it, as we've, pointed out many times, is yeah, less people are going to have access to this game. It's less accessible. And overall, it is Sony leveraging the quality of that game against the consumer to a degree and saying, listen, we made this game as high quality as we could. We're not going to put it on your specific device that you're playing on right now because we want to use it to encourage you and incentivize you to buy our device. It makes complete sense from that perspective. But it also makes sense that a lot of people are like, dude, I don't want a PlayStation. Just like a lot of people are like, dude, I don't want an Xbox. And it makes sense why the people who have settled in somewhere else, it's like a dream come true type scenario where, holy shit, I can play that. Like, it's like Halo on PlayStation. I don't have to go to Xbox anymore to play Halo. I could play it on PlayStation. For a lot of PlayStation players, that's like a kind of a dream come true type scenario. So it makes complete logical sense, why people are going to want to see, these walls and these barriers come down. But at the same time, I do understand the other side of it because I've grown up with it, and I do see a benefit there to a degree where it's like when I look at Nintendo and I'm like, it's hard to argue, right? Nintendo comes in and they're like, our games are exclusive. You can't do nothing about it. And then you see how much that benefits their own platform and their own hardware. And it creates this extremely tight and, buttoned up ecosystem. You can see the general appeal to that, on a broader level, I think. The only way you'd be convinced of exclusivity is if Sony launched a true pro console alongside its standard console, complete with a better GPU, CPU, and memory. A mid next gen console. Sony will probably be the first to do something like that. I bet you. That's the next step. That's what the PS6 Pro is going to be. The PS 6.5. You think a Sony launch would absolutely fail on PC? It's Steam or nothing. Well, that's why I find this conversation interesting because there's basically one of three things that are going to happen, right? Number one, nothing changes. Sony is just going to continue to put their games on PC, kind of staggered outside of live service games. And it's like their corporate report didn't mean anything. These rumors didn't mean anything. It's just staying the same. And honestly, I think that's fine. I think if they want to keep doing it that way, I think it will be fine. I could be wrong. Maybe if I was in charge at Sony, I would be the demise of the console, indirectly, where it's like, actually, no, now that you have something like the Steam machine coming up, and then Microsoft's going to have Steam on their console, like now people are less encouraged than ever before to buy your hardware, Sony. It could be that. But I get this general feeling that, I feel like if you're a PlayStation player at this point, like you're probably going to stick with PlayStation. As long as it depends on why you're here, but if you have a digital library, if they put out games that interest you and you already have a certain level of investment into that PlayStation ecosystem, I think if Sony kept doing it the way they're doing it, it wouldn't be problematic. But again, if you are Sony, and I'm just trying to view it from that level, if it was me in charge, I would still be nervous, but how sure are we? It's like, can we guarantee that? And it's like, well, there's no guarantee. The one guarantee is if we make our game exclusive, our hardware will be the only way, to that game. Like, if we're thinking like a tentpole like Wolverine, that's the only guarantee. So, you know, if I'm Sony and I'm looking at these charts and I'm seeing like 2% revenue, it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. We're reaching that point where it's like we got to make a push for the 100 million mark, and we got the next generation coming up with a PS6. What kind of message do we want to send? Right now, the message that Sony has sent is one that's in between. The message that they've sent is, listen, we're doing timed exclusivity, and we're not going to give you those time frames. So that's where they exist right now. They could, like I said, number one, just continue that. Number two, they're going to discontinue that. The second option here, the second outcome, is that Sony's going to look at this and they're going to say, all right, we are pulling back. Marathon, the Horizon multiplayer game, what else did they got? Team LFG, Dark Outlaw Studios, these live service games we have in development, they will go day one on Steam. And probably Xbox. Well, Marathon is going to be on Xbox. And obviously PlayStation. However, games like Wolverine, games like Intergalactic, games like future games like Spider-Man 3, Venom, the next God of War, Horizon 3. These are games that Sony may look at and say, we're just not going to put them on PC. And I do have to wonder if this is a decision Sony made, assuming that's the direction they're going in. I do have to wonder how much of that was impacted by everything we're learning about, again, not just the Steam machine, where Valve, like, guys, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the rumor mill. We're probably going to be covering it this upcoming week if it turns out to be true. It seems like Half-Life 3 is about to get announced. Like, for real. No joke. I know that sounds crazy, but everything is pointing to that happening this upcoming week. And people are beginning, not me, but like we're generally hearing whispers that this game may be exclusive. And it's going to be the game that tries to push the Steam machine. And that's where I'm saying Sony's got to be careful. And this is why I don't blame them. Like, if that's actually what we're about to see happen in the next week, bro, then Sony's going to be very glad that they didn't rip that Band-Aid off, because that is a threat, period. Like, if you're Sony, from a consumer level, it's fascinating. I will admit, from a consumer level, if Valve comes out with Half-Life 3 as an exclusive to the Steam machine, I'm like, yo. Well, granted, it would be a PC exclusive, but, it's meant to push that Steam machine. That would be the craziest outcome I could have imagined. Where I'm like, so not only is Half-Life 3 real, not only is the Valve console, PC console real, but they're going to try to actually sell. Like, dude, that would be Valve signaling we're looking to make a big splash. And we had this conversation when we talked about the Steam machine, about how, like, maybe it's going to be niche. They're just trying to sell it to a small subsect of gamers, people who buy the Steam machine. That's about it. And maybe that's true. And that's true too, B Flesher. Yeah, but they come out and they're like Half-Life 3. And, I don't know if it would be ready to launch when this Steam machine comes out, but if that's a thing that exists, Sony's going to need exclusives, bro. Like, they're going to need something there to say, you can't play this over there. Okay, so you're giving you Half-Life 3? Well, you know what? You know what, Valve? We're keeping Wolverine. Yeah, I'm telling you, I think Sony's going to feel like they have no choice but to do that. Now, you might ask yourself, well, and New Soul 9, I'll read your super chat in just a moment. You might ask yourself, well, what about Microsoft? Didn't Phil Spencer just congratulate Valve on their new hardware and say that they're excited for it and they're glad because their games sell so well on Steam? Once again, another indication that Microsoft, they're all about publishing now. When you have Phil Spencer celebrating a new hardware announcement that's not from their company and also emphasizing because our games sell well on Steam and we're a big publisher on Steam, you're going to see Phil Spencer celebrate the launch of the PS6 as well. Because it's Microsoft signaling like that's our bread and butter. Sony's not in that space right now. Not fully. Sony's a big publisher. They make a lot of money publishing, no doubt, but that's where Sony has to be careful. Well, where we have to continue to keep in mind that the PlayStation Store is not accessible everywhere. It's only accessible, well, honestly, in a meaningful capacity, it's only accessible on the console. And that's Sony's bread and butter. As much money as they make from games like Ghost of Yotei and Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine coming up, don't get me wrong, they're making a lot of money. And that's money they want. They're not just going to leave that on the table. But the real source of their money is that PlayStation Store. And so Sony, as of right now, has shown no willingness to put their store in other places. That could change with the PC launcher. And the PC launcher, even though it would fail, would be a huge signal that Sony's planning to move the PlayStation Store to other places. But they have to be so careful doing that because once you move your storefront, again, that's where your money comes from. That's where people's libraries are. You're basically saying you can now move your PlayStation library around. Once they do that, that more than anything will call into question the need for a PlayStation console, even for console owners right now. If Sony told you, like right now, you could go to PC and take your library with you to a certain degree, to a certain degree. Like basically, if Sony tries to go the whole Play Anywhere route, yeah, I think a lot of PlayStation players would be like, oh, okay, well, I will go consider these other options then. And New Soul 9, thank you for the $20 super chat, man. You're saying, and before I read this, guys, make sure you're hitting that like button. We're sitting at 78 likes. Let's see if we can bump that up to 100. I'd really appreciate that. It lets me know you guys are enjoying the streams. It helps with YouTube's algorithm. And again, we're striving for a goal of 50 members today. We're going to try to hit that 25 mark so we can bring Boston and feed him some treats. So consider becoming a member or gifting memberships. New Soul 9 with the $20 super chat says, MBG identity can be expressed in multiple ways. GTA 6 is what gives Rockstar a large mainstream identity. A valid thing you can argue of exclusivity is not having the manpower nor the resources to be at multiple platforms. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to having an identity, here's the big difference, I would say, New Soul, because you're not wrong. But I think where the difference lies is that when you look at something like GTA, you're saying GTA is what gives Rockstar their main identity. That's absolutely true. Rockstar is not a platform, though, right? Like GTA is the platform. GTA Online is basically a storefront. And this is why if Sony ever were to risk, let me see, I'm going to try to explain this as best I can. The reason why the identity of Sony in terms of exclusivity, why they still care about that to a certain degree. They clearly still care. This is why you're not seeing games like Wolverine go day one and Yotei go day one, because they still care to a certain degree. Astrobot, another great example. They care so much because they know these games are not going to make them the most amount of money. Like these games are not going to make up the majority of the pie chart of their revenue in gaming. It's everything else. It is something like GTA. It is something like Call of Duty. It is something like Resident Evil 9, right? These are the games that are going to be sold through the PlayStation Store that are going to be bought by the millions. Millions, tens of millions. And Sony's going to get a cut of every one of those. But it goes way further than that because it's not just those games. It's also games with the, as we called it, the storefronts within those games. The storefronts within those games, sure, Sony doesn't own those storefronts. Sony doesn't own the Roblox storefront or the Fortnite storefront or the Call of Duty storefront, but Sony gets 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. They get a 30% rip on every single thing. And so it becomes clear where the bulk of Sony's money in gaming comes from. It comes from their storefront. The reason why I think Sony still cares about the identity is because that identity, as we call it, that identity is what essentially, I don't want to use the word force. I guess in some cases it forces people, But in most cases, we will view it as an incentive. Like, why should I come to your storefront and buy your hardware? And it's like, because of this, because of game A, B, C, and D that only we can offer. But you can also buy all the other games you want. That's the trick right there. That's what gives the PlayStation Store. What I guess what I'm trying to say is Sony is in a situation where their hardware is what gives their PlayStation Store, to an extent, its identity because it's tethered. And if Sony decides to break those two things off, it's very different from when we look at something like GTA 6. And again, if we look at GTA 6, well, how come GTA 6 can be everywhere and still make the most money? Well, it's because, well, first off, GTA 6 will be everywhere eventually. We'll just say GTA in general. GTA Online. Why can that be everywhere and still make the most money? Because Rockstar's not trying to sell you hardware. Rockstar's not trying to create a closed ecosystem. Rockstar actually has basically made it clear that we are totally okay giving every platform holder their 30% cut. That's been because you know what I think? I know this sounds insane. I think if Take-Two Interactive and Rockstar wanted to go absolutely batshit crazy, they could. They could make a console called the GTA 6 console. And guess what? You want GTA 6, you gotta buy this device. Don't ask why. You won't ask why. All that's going to matter is that you want access to this game, you buy this device. But you would have to ask yourself, what would be the point of that from Rockstar's perspective? There is no point because it's like, well hold on. What game are you going to sell on the GTA 6 console? You're going to sell GTA 6. Yep. Oh, okay. What else? Like, that's it. So in other words, you realize like, well, there's no point for that hardware to exist because it's only going to give you access to one game. And therefore, Rockstar is not really going to be making any money on the hardware itself. So what is the point? That's where Sony's in this position. Microsoft was in this position, still kind of is, but Nintendo's in it as well. They're in this position where the storefront is closed. And the storefront is closed so that way you can court as many people and keep them there as you possibly can. And the reason why you keep them there is because we want you playing GTA 6 on the PlayStation 5, and we want every microtransaction we want everything to flow through us. That's basically what I'm trying to say here, New Soul. And I do believe that that's why Sony cares about the quote-unquote identity of their brand, because when you look at Microsoft, right? Microsoft says, we're going to take what was once the identity of our storefront, of our brand and our console, that being Halo, and we're going to put it on the competitor. You could make an argument, well, you've completely lost your identity. What is the identity of Xbox? Their identity went from being a console manufacturer to a storefront holder to now your identity is you're a publisher. First and foremost, you're a publisher. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it all comes down to what the company itself is trying to achieve. And that's why I try to explain that people want Sony to just become a publisher. And I'm like, that's not ever going to happen. Ever. Like, people who think Sony's going to follow Microsoft, they inherently don't understand where Sony's money comes from. And if they did, they would realize why that's nonsensical. And I'm not saying that from a consumer level. I'm saying that from just if you understand the business side of it, it makes complete sense. And it actually makes zero sense why Sony would follow what Microsoft is doing. Now, granted, that doesn't mean they're not going to take pages out of Microsoft's book. If they can take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and it works for them, sure, they'll do it. But this idea that Sony's going to forego their storefront, which, keep in mind, that's what Microsoft is doing. That's what Microsoft is doing. And the reason why a game like, as you brought up in your super chat, GTA 6 isn't really all too relevant to the platform conversation is because never forget when Jim Ryan said, successful live service games are basically platforms in of themselves. Why do you think Sony was willing to put Helldivers 2 on Xbox? They're not putting the PlayStation Store on Xbox. Nor are they putting Spider-Man on Xbox. They're putting Helldivers 2 on Xbox because as far as Sony's concerned, Xbox, sorry, Helldivers 2, that's the platform. Helldivers 2 is a storefront that's separate from the PlayStation Store because it's a live service game. This is also the same reason why, even if Sony says you're not getting Wolverine anymore on PC, you're not getting Wolverine, you're not getting Intergalactic, you're not getting the next God of War, you're not getting Horizon 3, even if Sony said that, you know what they will say? Oh, you can absolutely have Marathon. You can absolutely have LFG's game. You can have every single live service game because those live service games are being built to become platforms themselves, to become their own storefronts that transcend the PlayStation Store. This is why I try to explain to people that we have to be careful how confidently we try to predict what Sony's going to do, because the only thing that seems to be apparent is that Sony wants it all. They want to have their closed storefront because they can. That's how they've gotten to where they are. They want to go beyond that, though, without having to give that up. How can you do that? Well, it just so happens that live service games are the perfect way to do that. They want to expand their IP and make more people aware of their IP. How do you do that without throwing a game like God of War on every platform? Oh, make it a TV series. Release the older game on PC. And while you're at it, well, they're not making a live service game, but, maybe a mobile God of War. You see the mobile Horizon game, the MMORPG that we're going to talk about. There you go. So Sony is just being extremely strategic in how they want to grow beyond the console, because that's something that they do not shy away from. Sony makes it clear they want to grow beyond the console, but I think there's always this confusion that enters the conversation, understandably, where it's, so Sony wants to grow PlayStation beyond the console by basically being done with the console. It's like, no. They want to grow beyond the console while simultaneously keeping that console peaked. That's the goal. And that's where I think, you see this kind of weird, sometimes weird, it's not always weird, but an awkward tug of war when you see fans kind of clashing and gamers clashing on the internet of like, Sony should do this and Sony should do that. And I, like, my whole thing is, I mean, you guys know where I stand, right? Like, I play on console. So it's never bothered me if Sony says like, hey, we're going to make this game exclusive to our console. It's like, okay, well, I'm here anyway. Like, this is how you got me over here. So I have no problem with that, obviously. But at the same time, when I've been presented with this notion of, yeah, we might take some of this and put it over there, I sat back and I think, okay, well, do I want to leave? Like, do I have this desire where it's like, Sony, you're holding me hostage here. And then the realization kicks in that like, no, I'm not being held hostage at all. Like, at any time I could go play anywhere else. And if Sony says like, hey, we're going to do Wolverine day one on PC, I'm not just going to suddenly become a PC player. That's just me being totally honest to myself. And it's just like, if I wanted to be a PC player, I would be. Would it make me consider it and look at it harder and say, am I ready to make that jump and completely readjust to a new storefront, a new platform, and a whole new way of engaging with video games? And it sounds a bit dramatic, but when you're switching platforms, it can feel that way sometimes. I would at least think about it. And I don't want to say for sure. I know I just said it like pretty definitively. I don't want to say for sure, because I guess it would depend where I'm at, but I'm going to say, at least for right now, it's like, I got a PS5 Pro. This is where my library of games is. I still buy physical games. I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to freak out. It's not going to hurt me. It's not going to hurt me if Sony says we're going to put Wolverine day one on PC. That's not going to hurt me. Will it hurt Sony's console sales? I don't know. That's what Sony's got to think about. That's not my problem. You know what I mean? The only thing I care about, to a degree, is I don't want to see Sony tank their console. I don't want to see Sony in a situation where it's like, now our console's irrelevant. Now we don't even give a shit about it. Because that is what I invested in. You know what I mean? So I would just like to see a balance. That's really all I'm hopeful for. And I don't, like I said, I don't think anybody should walk away from this assuming that, I made sure to put rumor in the title because we don't know. We don't know for sure if Sony's pulling back, but there seems to be enough evidence to a certain degree, to a reasonable degree, to where I think if you do come to the conclusion's the wrong word, if you make the assumption, right? If you choose to make the assumption that Sony is pulling back their single player games because they want to be more exclusive, they want to focus more on exclusivity and, with their tentpole titles and use that as a driver for their hardware, which will lead people to invest into their ecosystem, into their storefront. I think that's a relatively safe assumption only because of what we're now beginning to see and what Sony themselves have said most recently. On the other side of that, if you want to assume that's not going to happen and they're going to continue to pursue PC, my only thing with that, my only caveat with that is I wouldn't immediately assume that that means Steam. And I do think that the potential evidence that's in front of us right now that indicates that comes from the upcoming Xbox Magnus, as well as the Steam Machine. These are two new pieces of hardware that I need to remind people. And this is the important thing that I think people overlook this. We've had all these conversations about, is anybody actually going to care about Xbox Magnus? Is this going to be a piece of hardware that people actually buy? Is the thing going to flop? Is this something Sony and Nintendo should be worried about? Now we got the Steam Machine. Is this thing actually going to compete with PS5 or Switch? What's going on here? People actually going to buy this? Here's the bigger picture that I think some people tend to forget about is that, guys, the Steam Machine, Xbox Magnus, from Sony's perspective, they're probably not sitting there really questioning how many units is this thing going to sell? What will the appeal of this be? Should we just say, screw it, we're not worried about it at all? From Sony's perspective, they see two extremely relevant companies in the video game space announcing, starting with the Steam Machine, here's a box you connect to your TV and put on your entertainment center to play games. That's what Sony sees. And I think people forget that. There's been all these kind of like in the weeds semantical arguments, which again, I partake in and it's understandable. We want to sort these things out. It's like, is it a PC? Is it a console? Like, what is it? What is this thing? At the end of the day, this is a box that you will buy to hook up to your TV. And you will sit down on your sofa and play games on it. That's literally what the PlayStation was designed to do. So I think when you take a step back and you view it from that lens, it becomes clear, I think, to people that, oh, okay, so maybe Sony does care, right? Maybe Sony does care that there are these other boxes that are now about to be on the market, starting early next year, going into 2027, that regardless of how they're priced, regardless of whether or not people see them as a PC or not. I think Sony, we talk about them not getting complacent. We talk about them not becoming arrogant. From my perspective, Sony would be wise to not assume anything. Don't assume that, these boxes are going to fail. Don't assume that these won't be the next big threat. Because even though, if you break it down, you walk away from it and you're like, maybe it actually isn't going to be a threat. Don't assume that, because that's, I think, when Sony runs into problems. It's when Sony decides this isn't a problem. And then before you know it, it's like, bro, Steam Machine and, possibly Xbox Magnus, we still need to learn a lot more about that device. But these new devices, they're coming for your console. And they're actually doing it. Sony doesn't want to be in a position where it's like, by the time they realize that, it's too late because they didn't even take it seriously to begin with. That's the critical mistake that Sony made with the PS3, is they did not take Xbox seriously at all. And they were arrogant about it. They were like, you can't touch us, dude. And before you know it, they got completely knocked off the mountain. And that's why I feel as though, if Sony learned anything after all this time, They shouldn't be sitting there shaking and scared shitless about the Steam machine or about Xbox Magnus. Absolutely not. That wouldn't make any sense either. But they should respect it. They should understand that, listen, you're still selling hardware. You're still in the business of selling hardware. That's obviously your priority. That's your bread and butter by miles. Okay? Make sure nothing's going to threaten that. And I think that, I think Sony's also considering the fact that as the Steam machine is being announced and as we're seeing Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and the whole Microsoft team talk extensively about how different the next Xbox is going to be, how they're breaking down barriers, different storefronts, all this different stuff, right? I do think that Sony is also thinking about their own next generation and how it's like, let's not forget that Sony's goal going into 2027 and beyond is we want to sell you a PlayStation 6 device. That's what we want to do. Let's not stray too far away from that. Again, I think from a consumer angle, people want to see Sony and Nintendo. They want to see Sony and Nintendo go the route that Microsoft is. Not everybody, but a lot of people do, because there's this idea that if gaming in its entirety homogenizes, it'll only produce good results. And I've always warned people, this isn't me saying that the other side of it is better. I'm just trying to warn people that the grass is always greener. There's always a price to be paid. There's always something looming in the distance where it's like, you thought this was going to be great, but there's something here to remind you, to bring you back down to earth and ground you and remind you that nothing is perfect. And there's always going to be a price to pay some way, in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying we will be the ones paying it per se, but there will always be a price to pay. And, when we imagine a truly homogenized gaming future where there is no such thing as exclusivity and platform, it doesn't, none of these platform holders are fighting for you to come to them. It's impossible to imagine to a degree because it just doesn't make sense at the end of the day. But even if we were to try to imagine that, I mean, surely there's some massive potential negative that comes along with it, right? Because if it was truly that perfect, then we would already be there. We would have been there from day one. I'm just saying, we gotta keep these things within reason, where the industry itself can't be truly homogenized anyway, because it's like, okay, let's take away hardware. Does that mean the war is over? No, the war rages on through platform wars, through storefront wars. Okay, take those away. What then? Well, the war still wages with live service games. We need you playing our game, not their game. So this is why I just think people need to really try to see the bigger picture in all of this, in that no matter how pro-consumer some of these things are, which they are, this notion, like this kind of like I'm going to call it silly because it comes off as silly to me. This silly notion that, if we just take down all these barriers, everything will be great. The reason why it's silly is because that's not going to happen. Competition, while it may transform, will always exist, dude. And we have DSX Steam with the $10 super chat saying DSX on Steam just added Bluetooth, audio, and haptic feedback support on PC. That's a game changer outside the PS5. Oh, damn. This is like a self-plug super chat, I think. I'm not going to lie, I haven't heard of this, but DSX Steam, I do appreciate your super chat, buddy. And there you go. The game changer outside of the PS5. The haptic feedback, that's interesting. Haptic feedback support on PC. I do feel like that's something that Sony has really leaned into, with the DualSense, obviously. Yeah, what's up, Irfan? Yeah, you're welcome, dude. That was the first thing that popped up when I went to go look it up. So I'm glad it was there. Thank you for posting it. But But yeah, I do feel as though at the end of the day, the conversation, I'm getting like way out there with it, but reeling it back in, the conversation of will Sony go day and date on PC, or you know, will they start pulling it back? I'm leaning more towards, and this is just my assumption. It's not I'm not here to say what I want, because I'll be honest, I'm kind of indifferent to it. I'll tell you how I feel about it, but then I'll tell you what I think is going to happen. How I feel about it is I'm mostly indifferent. I do see the logic, and I think it could be a good thing for their console. Ultimately, it's like Sony, if you don't want to put your AAA single player games on PC anymore, I think that will result in more console sales. I don't think it will hurt your console to do that. But on the flip side of that, I also do feel that like if you just kind of want to keep it going the way you are, I think it's been kind of proven. You're sitting at 84 million PS5 sold. I think you'll be fine. As for how I feel about these PlayStation games being available on Steam through the next Xbox console, through the Steam machine, I mean, I still think they'll be fine. Maybe that's my mistake. Maybe if I was in charge of Sony and I said, just keep going the way you're going, it's fine. You'll still sell just as many consoles. Maybe that would be the equivalent of me effing around and finding out and, tanking at, PlayStation sales over time. But I feel totally indifferent in the sense that, dude, I've gotten used to Sony putting their games on PC. And I think people forget that I was the same person advocating for you should put Death Stranding on PC day one, because I think it'll be fine. Not everybody agrees with that, but I'm pretty settled in, I guess you could say. Sony putting some games on PC is not going to make me flip my desk and say I'm done with PlayStation. No, they would have to do more than that. They would have to do stuff that would begin to really impact me, on like a week to week level of this is interfering with my experience on PlayStation at this point. But again, if they want to kind of go back to like we're leaning more so into exclusivity now, and we want to use games like Wolverine to sell consoles, I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't see a problem with that either. Like, I'm not one of these people that's like, you're the devil. Like, no, it's fine. It's fine. You want to sell your console. I get it. I'm not going to tell somebody. I'm going to be the person that says, yeah, I like PS5. I recommend it. Not going to, not saying it's for everybody, but it's been good to me. I enjoy it. I've been having fun. We have Jimmy Mack with the $5 super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. He says the Steam machine lacks the capabilities to play Call of Duty, Battlefield, Minecraft, Fortnite, etc. out of the box, all due to Steam OS. Wait, how? Surely that can't be true. How is that possible? I did hear Digital Foundry talking about Battlefield. Perfect Image says anti-cheat. Really? Oh. Well, how does that work? Like what? Like I'm confused in the sense of like why can't anti-cheat work with this device out of the box? Like, I guess it's just SteamOS doesn't support it. Is that all it is? Because that's pretty significant. Yeah, if that's true, I haven't looked too deeply into it. If that's true, that's pretty bad. That you couldn't play those games out of the box. I mean, that feels like it would be a little bit devastating to a degree. Some anti-cheat software is not compatible with Linux. Oh. And Irfan, let me see what's going on here. Oh yeah, we did cover that earlier. Irfan, yeah, I'm sorry. I know you're a little bit late to it. I don't normally do Saturday streams, but I will say that Yeah, Irfan, I will say that what I said about that earlier is I think he's trying not to have it blow up into a bigger thing, which is fine. And he's trying, he's saying it's like not a leak, it's not a report. I think what he's trying to do ultimately is separate his work he does for Windows Central from what he does on his own time, outside of that. That's my read on it, because he did say word for word like it was from a very good source. My assumption is that that source is probably the same source, or one of the, I would assume, many sources you have that you refer to. You know what I mean? So it's kind of an oxymoron in a sense, where it's like, okay, so either your very good source is not good and shouldn't be trusted, or it is a good source and we should trust it. And I think that, again, my whole thing is I'm not a leaker. I don't have sources. One of the reasons, this is exactly why, by the way, what we're seeing right now is exactly why I've chosen not to go down that path, where many people have encouraged me and said I should do it. But I'm like, I don't want to do that, man, because when you become somebody who leaks things through sources you obtain over years, um, you know, people hang on to every word you say. And because of that, you have to be very careful about how you word things. And yeah, I mean, it's like if you're somebody who's known to be a leaker, sure, maybe an Xbox leaker, but you say something along the lines of like, I heard from a very good source. I mean, dude, we got people out here saying they heard from a source that Red Dead Redemption 2 is still coming to current gen consoles. And like, yeah, people are going to hang on to these things because, well, this is our only way. This is our only. Sony's not going to be the one to tell us. You know what I'm saying? Like, Sony's not going to come out and literally say, we're pulling back from PC. That's something that you'll only learn through the grapevine, through rumors and through leaks that occur through people who frankly are saying things to people, that are considered confidential. So, just like the source that told you that Xbox games weren't going to PlayStation. Well, see, that's what I'm saying, man, is like people, I'm not trying to defend Jez Corden right now. But at the same time, I do think we have to just take things for what they actually are. And also it doesn't bode well, I would say, for, the future leaks and rumors from this individual. But people are pointing out, like, Jez Corden tweeted, I think it was 2 days ago, day and date is coming. Right? And people are using that and they're saying, well, he can't be trusted because look at what he said here. And I'm like, guys, there is a difference, at least in my opinion. However, Jez does seem to be the one kind of causing this to be even more messy. There's a difference between, like, I'll put it to you like this. If I went on Twitter right now and I said, Sony is going day and date with their games on PC. That's all I said. That's the only thing I typed. And then the next day, I said on my stream, I heard from a very good source that Sony's pulling back from PC their single player tentpole games. Surely, well, I say that, but it's like, no, nothing is sure. I would assume that most people would understand that there's a reason why that first tweet doesn't say my source told me. A source told me. It just says Sony's going day and date on PC, because that's just me making a statement. There is a difference between me making a statement or somebody making a statement and somebody prefacing that statement with, this is what I've heard from a source. There is a distinct difference between those two things. So, at that point, all I could really say is, if I came out and then I was like, guys, my source or don't just ignore what I said. Like, don't. It's not a leak. It's not a leak, guys. This is just what I heard from my very good source. Honestly, the only way I could put out that fire is by saying that source is not legitimate. That source is not reliable, and I can't trust that source. So I'm telling you not to trust it either. You can't have it both ways. And I'm not the one that decides that. That's literally just the way it goes. When we're dealing with leaks, when we're dealing with rumors, when we're dealing with people who claim to have sources, it's one of two things. Either the source is reliable or they're not, or on occasion, it's just totally made up. It's one of the three. And if you're trying to build good credibility and you want to become reliable, then you got to have a good source. You can't say your source is very good and then immediately shit on that source. You know what I'm saying? So, I think it's an attempt to kind of separate the two things from one another. But this is where it is becoming questionable of like, who exactly can we rely on? Who exactly can we listen to? Because we are living in a day and age where you have journalists that are professional and, they're writing for, for websites and putting out reports and it's all professionally done. But then they're also just saying, stuff on the side where like, here's what I heard and here's this and here's that. And it's like, we're existing in this time where we can have rumors just kind of vaguely put out there that actually sound pretty significant. Like, why would you just casually say that? That's pretty serious. That's pretty significant. And then you also have the opposite where it's like, again, we're getting like insider gaming type reports where it's like, I'm breaking it all down for you. These are from, this is meant to be taken seriously because I take these sources seriously. This is where we are. This is where we've been for a while, where all of this exists under the, one big umbrella at this point of insiders and leaking in the modern age. And so I do think it is the responsibility of whoever does have sources to tread very carefully and very mindfully and be careful, make sure you separate the worm from the apple. Because if you go in assuming, oh, everybody will be able to separate the worm from the apple. Like, for example, that example I just gave you of if I went and typed PlayStation's going to go day and date on PC, and then the next day said, my very good source told me they're actually pulling back from that, I would absolutely not expect people to separate the worm from the apple because you can't rely on people to do that. People are going to look at me and be like, are you an idiot? Like, you just said the opposite yesterday, Hence why at the very beginning of the stream, I told people, do not assume this to be true. Take it with a grain of salt. We are considering all angles. We're considering all options, and we're doing that. So that way, if we find out this information is totally bogus and Sony's not planning on pulling back, it's not a surprise at all. But if it turns out that they do, and suddenly there's no more single player games being announced for PC, we look at something like this and we're like, we saw a build up to it. We saw these pieces kind of falling into place. Irfan, you're saying Sony themselves talked pretty much nothing about PC and their strategy for in their recent earnings. They kind of acted like they don't care, so there could be some truth to what Jez is saying. Yeah, like I said, Irfan, I know you're a little bit late to it, but I talked extensively about why I think there could be some level of credence to this. There could be some level of truth, but also why, it might not be exactly what we think. It might not be what we assume. Like, for example, I said earlier, and I still feel this way, that I think Sony is going to do a PC launcher. I think people are going to be very focused on that PC launcher is going to fail. And I think what people don't see, I think the idea of a PlayStation PC launcher failing, we have to ask ourselves one question: does Sony care? Well, it's like I said, if their multi-platform revenue accounts for 2% of their total revenue, 2%, and then they put out a PC launcher where 100% of the money they make for that launcher goes to them, not 70%, 100%, but then their total revenue goes down to like 1.5%. Sure, the percentage is going to be lower. The profit margin might be higher. I'm going to say Sony will probably be okay with that. And I think that's exactly what they're going in. I think that's the mentality that they're, that they're going in with. I think Sony's going to go in with the mentality that, look, we're not going to put a PC launcher on on PC to do big numbers. We're going to do it as a way to allow the PlayStation Store to exist in another place in a controlled manner. You know? And if you're a PC player, look, I'm not a PC player, so this is going to be fascinating. If this is what Sony does, I don't know how PC players are going to react. Like, for example, let's just say Wolverine is the first game. Wolverine next year is coming out in fall. Let's say in summer, Sony announces a PC launcher, and they announce that Wolverine will be the first game launching day and date on PC through our PlayStation launcher on PC. I'm fairly certain you're going to see the PC market or the PC audience erupt and be like, F you, Sony. This should be on Steam. And I think Sony's going to say, we don't care. I'm going to be honest. Because you know what I think Sony's going to do? I think Sony's going to look at that and say, dude, we came to you. Just not in the way you wanted. You know what I mean? Like, we took a game that was otherwise not supposed to be on this platform, and it's there. And I think I think that's where Sony will probably plant their flag. Where they're like, if you want to be upset that we're not on Steam, that's fine. But you said you wanted our games on PC. Here you go. I do think it's a little bit of a backhand, though. Like, if Sony does that, I think it is a little bit of a backhand, because it's like, well, Sony, you did put your games on Steam already. You know what I mean? You did put your games on Steam already. Can't blame people for being upset. But I think that's probably the most logical, based off of everything we have in front of us right now, middle ground that Sony's going to settle on. And that's the thing, you know, I would question, and this is the last thing I'll add to this for now anyway. I would question, like, if Sony was prepared for PC players to just say, I'll just wait. Like, Sony, you're not going to get me to go to your console to play this game. You're not going to get me to go to your launcher to play this game. I'm just going to stay here. Yeah, I mean, there is a question of, like, is it even worth trying? Because we know PC players are stubborn, you know? We know they're stubborn. They'll wait, dude. They'll just sit there and they'll wait. The question is if Sony knows that or not. We'll see. We'll see, man. Will we have a live reaction to the Game Award nominees? I don't know if it'll be live. What time is it happening? Where's it at? It's happening at noon. So it's going to happen as soon as I go live. So I guess, yeah, in a sense, I might be like a little bit late to it, but yeah, we'll be talking about it that day. Who cares about the nominees? Just watch the show. Well, hold on. Yeah, we were going to talk about that as a topic. I do want to go over the Horizon information first. I'm not going to have like that much to say about Horizon, but I do want to look at the gameplay with you guys. It's short. There's like a 2-minute gameplay trailer, and I want to give you the new. There's some good and some bad information that we're learning about this Horizon MMORPG that we'll go over. We'll continue with this topic for a little bit longer, though, before we move on. We'll extract everything out of it that we possibly can. I'm just double checking right now to see if there's been any other updates. Geez, man, that post went really viral, though. Somebody says the rumor's already been debunked. It's so funny to me though, man, the gaslighting. Well, I guess, we'll have to see, man. The final I don't know if this will be the final thing I'll say, but for now, I do think that people listen, we're being told one of two things here. We're being told that anytime, like Jez Corden himself is saying that, listen, if it's not in a Windows Central article, don't take it seriously. Sorry, I'm just not going to take it seriously. And I'm going to assume, this is where my assumption lies. My assumption is you're not going to just say things like that for the sake of saying it, because who does that? Unless you're literally trying to burn your credibility. If you're literally trying to torch your own credibility, that would make sense. But assuming that's not what you're trying to do, assuming you're trying to do the opposite and build your credibility, I'm seeing a level of gaslighting that's not healthy. Where, like, for example, I put out this post saying, like, this is the report, and somebody says already debunked, and it has a bunch of upvotes, and I'm like, oh, well, who debunked it? And it's like Jez Corden did. Somebody posted the response from Jez Corden. I'm like, what? I mean, dude, I'm perplexed at this point where it's like, oh, okay. It's kind of funny though. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of funny. Jesus, that's really obnoxious. But it's interesting. I think the timing's interesting. Like I said, regardless of whether or not his particular rumor is true or not, when we look at Sony's report, there seems to be an indication that there may be some level of truth here, man. There may be some level of truth. From this point, I think what we'll have to kind of wait for is we'll have to wait and see if anybody else, any other insiders, maybe like Tom Henderson of Insider Gaming, perhaps Jeff Grubb, maybe even Jason Schreier, just if anybody else in this space, maybe Nate the Hate, I don't know, if they can get some kind of info on this to help corroborate it. Because if we get a corroboration, that's going to amplify this a lot. Damn, Irfan. Damn, bro. Yo, I forgot about that. Dude. I'm not sure, Dan. I'm really not sure. By the way, guys, as we continue our stream here, surprise Saturday stream, we are doing a members lounge once this stream concludes. We're not going to be playing Black Ops 7. We're going to be reacting to a couple of things regarding Black Ops 7, and we're going to be trying to determine if it is in fact a dumpster fire or not, because I've been seeing a lot on my feed. I've been seeing a lot of clips and a lot of opinions. I kid you not, every time I went on Twitter yesterday, the first thing I saw on the For You section was a host of tweets saying how trash Black Ops 7 is. I'm like, what is going on? And that clip, by the way, that clip that started circulating, if you know the clip, you know the clip. And so I'm genuinely curious, as somebody who's not buying Call of Duty this year, but I've been a long time Call of Duty player. I'm going to have to, I did see this funny ass clip, by the way, where people were like, dude, they can just enter your lobby when you're playing single player. And there was this person where there was a cutscene playing and somebody just entered their lobby and was like, hey man, like, are you blank? Are you so-and-so? And this person was like, who are you? Like, why are you here? Like, I don't even know who you are. And this is literally in the middle of a cutscene. And I'm like, like, that's some of the most unhinged nonsense I've ever seen in a game. But yeah, we will talk about that. So, and Raven X0 comes in. Raven, thank you so much for that, buddy.
Thank you.
I was just about to say, if you guys want to help contribute to the goal, we're striving for 25 right now, with the ultimate goal of hitting 50, hopefully. And if we hit 25, we'll feed Boss, we'll feed the Beast. But you'll give access to more people for the members lounge after this. So Raven, thank you for dropping 5 memberships, buddy. Those people now will be able to hang out with us in the lounge. And we also have Armani Coleman with a $5 super chat saying, I can't wait for the Game Awards. I believe they're going to show Rise of Hydra. I hope, because they kind of have to, and maybe some Wolverine, some more gameplay, but I don't know. I don't think we're getting more Wolverine gameplay, to be honest. I think the next time we're going to see Wolverine, or at least I think Insomniac made it pretty clear that the next time we're going to see Wolverine is spring of next year. They're probably going to have a state of play. That's my assumption, like a dedicated state of play, and they'll give a specific release date at that state of play, maybe in like April or May. When it comes to Rise of Hydra, yeah, man, I am a little bit surprised that we haven't seen more of this game so far. I think there's some level of concern, like we haven't seen much at all of it. It's been getting delayed multiple times. It's been indefinitely delayed into 2026. But with that being said, not to be too pessimistic, Armani, I do think that the Game Awards that makes the most sense. Like, hey, where could this game show up next? The Game Awards, right? I'll put it to you this way, Armani. If we don't see this game at any capacity at the Game Awards, I would be worried about it. I would be worried, because that's the place. It's a Marvel game, That's the place you're going to show it. But yeah, I don't think Wolverine's going to show up. To be clear, Armani, I do think Sony will have a significant presence at the Game Awards. I do think Sony's going to be at the Game Awards with multiple announcements. I just don't think Wolverine's going to be part of it. But I'd love to be wrong. If they come out with another Wolverine trailer at the Game Awards, that'd be great. I think it's more likely we'll see something for Saros before Wolverine, because we do have to remember that Saros is coming in March, and they're probably gonna want that to kind of be in the spotlight, and then Wolverine will just ramp up right after Saros comes out within a couple weeks. One thing about the update, Until Dawn 2. Oh yeah. Oh, that's interesting, Laman. That's super interesting if that's true. You're saying Hayden how do you say her name? Panettiere? Is that how you say it? I can never say her last name correctly, but she was in Until Dawn. You're saying she's at Fire Sprite Studios? Dude, I'm telling you. I've been saying for a while, I think Fire Sprite's game is Until Dawn 2, man. The job listings seem to indicate that. She's been there for weeks, so it seems like Until Dawn is moving forward. I think she's doing mocap. I don't want to, it's slight spoilers, but, if you played Until Dawn Remake, they added like another ending. They changed it a little bit. And the ending in the original game indicates that that's it. It's over. Like there's nothing else happening. There's two things they changed in the ending of Until Dawn 2024 that indicate, oh yeah, we're doing more. And it's pretty, it's pretty intentional. There's like a post-credit scene practically. So I believe this 100%. And I'm looking forward to it. I haven't played Where the Winds Meet. I'm not sure how it is. Irfan, you're saying I wish Saros wasn't a roguelike. You're very into the world of Returnal. And like what you're seeing of Saros, but roguelike is just hell for me. I can't. It does seem like Saros might be a little bit easier. It does seem like it'll be a little bit easier. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to give you too much hope, Irfan. Like, it still seems like if you watch the Saros gameplay, it's like, yeah, this is pretty much, it feels like Returnal 2. You know what I mean? I don't even know that I could call it a spiritual successor. I mean, it looks very, very similar. They could have called it Returnal 2 if they wanted to. You think Intergalactic will show up at the TGAs? Yeah, I think so too. Timing seems right. The thing I'm really wondering is if their second game. Keep in mind that Naughty Dog has a second game in development. A single-player game. It's been in development for multiple years. Sean Eskag, his name is. He's the one directing it. And Neil Druckmann is producing it. So there is a whole nother Naughty Dog game that could be announced at any time. And I think people forget about that. However, I don't know that you want to announce 2 Naughty Dog games at once. My guess is this. My guess is that, yes, Intergalactic will be the Game Awards. Intergalactic will be the main focus for Naughty Dog leading up to its 2027 release. I think Intergalactic is going to come out early 2027. I think there's going to be a PlayStation 6 event in mid 2027. And I think you're going to see that new Naughty Dog game announced at that PlayStation 6 event. I know that's a while from now, but that makes the most sense for me. I don't think they want to announce 2 games at one time and have them interfere. I think they'll, as soon as, within a couple months after Intergalactic being out, they'll have that big PS6 event, and then that's when they'll. Are you sure Naughty Dog has a second game in development? Yes, they officially confirmed this numerous times themselves. So that's not like a rumor or hearsay. That's confirmed. It's just, a lot of people miss that. Like they're not paying close attention, and they miss the fact that this was confirmed. PS6 is now coming in 2028. I don't believe so. No. I'm sticking to my guns here. I firmly believe the PS6 is coming holiday 2027. Like, I think there's a lot of people that want it to come later, and I understand that, but I'm fairly certain it's coming holiday 2027. Could they change something at the last minute? Yeah, but it's, based off of everything we know, Sony wouldn't do that unless there was like some kind of emergency or something. Like, I mean, something like really serious, which could happen. But, the plan as of right now for Sony is holiday 2027 next gen. Don't shoot the messenger. All right. I don't know how that's going to play out. I'm just letting you know that's what's happening. GTA 6 PS6 version already in the works? Probably, yeah. Hold on. I want to bring something up here. If you give me a moment. Give me one moment. Oh, hey, it's already up. How did that... Hold on. Wait, how is this already up? I'm very confused. My bad. Yeah, what was that thing that just popped up? The God of War remake? What's that? I might have to check that out. Captain Cuba? He's like the God of War guy. Hold on, let me fix my camera here. So I want to watch this, although my face is going to be a little bit cut off. I want to check out this gameplay with you guys. Because I didn't realize that this was released. Sorry, I'm all messed up here because this was like the wrong thing that I had opened here. This is the gameplay for Horizon Steel Frontiers, and I gotta show this to you guys because it looks good, guys. Like, it looks good. Let me just pull out my chat here so we can watch it together. I mean, I would say, yeah, it even looks great. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. I know people were not all about me being so negative on my last stream, but I'm kind of worried that this game, at least just based off of this gameplay, I'm worried that this game is going to be better than the actual Guerrilla Games multiplayer game. I'm a little bit worried about it, but that's the thing. Yeah, before we watch this gameplay, for as cool as it looks, there's something that I misunderstood when I originally talked about this and went over it with you guys. The thing that I misunderstood is that this is through and through a mobile video game. Okay, I misunderstood because they said it's coming to PC. I thought it was being built for PC. It's not. Well, it technically is, but it's being on PC. You will only be able to access this game through Purple, which is NCSoft's own storefront. I believe it's their own application, and it essentially makes it it ensures that like this is a mobile game. So outside of Purple, like, you're not gonna be able to play it on Steam. Is it an emulator? Is that what it is? Oh, I didn't even know that. So you're saying purple's an emulator. It's not even, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So I just wanted to emphasize this because I was a little bit mistaken. I thought that like they were building a PC version. I thought they were building a PC version, and I'm like, bro, if you're building a PC version, why would you not have a console version? And we're going to go over the information because apparently NCSoft did answer the question, will this game come to PS5, or why wasn't it announced for PS5? And before we watch this, we have Armani Coleman with a super chat saying, I can't wait to see Captain America Combat and Rise of Hydra. Captain America is probably going to be better than Avengers, the Avengers game Captain America. Yeah, I never did get to play the Avengers game. I kind of forgot that existed from Square Enix. Also, absolutely wild to think that was a live service title. The gameplay of the Avengers game did look pretty decent, though, from what I remember. And yeah, I'm sure it'll be top notch, dude. Like, again, Amy Hennig is directing this game. So, she's known for the first 3 Uncharted games. She has a great pedigree. Be very curious to see how this turns out. And we have Titus Crow with a super chat saying, Hanzo Reza is live. Give him a follow and say hi. He's an OG here. He only has a few viewers, so go give him a boost, guys. His name is his channel, Hanzo Reza. Well, that's very nice of you, Titus. You're out here shouting out your good friend Hanzo. I didn't even know he was streaming. Yeah, guys, don't leave my stream yet. No, it's cool. Maybe go give him a view, give him a like. I didn't even know he streamed. So that's very cool. Hanzo's asking for Wes. Thank you for the super chat, Titus. All right, so let's check out this gameplay. Oh, it's lagging real bad. I don't know why. I just gotta pause it for a second. Let's try this again. Yo, I just gotta say, man, like, what's the biggest thing you guys notice with this gameplay? Because you know what I'm noticing, and this is crazy to me. The melee combat in this looks so much better than any melee combat we've ever seen in Horizon, and I'm jealous because if you guys recall, the main criticism I had specifically for Forbidden West, I was more forgiving of it in Horizon Zero Dawn because it was their first game and they're figuring it out. But like, dude, my biggest criticism of Forbidden West was why aren't there more melee options and why does melee feel not good? It's like slightly improved, but it really doesn't feel very good. And it makes me kind of jealous that when, they're showing off this game, it does look very Monster Hunter. It looks clearly very Monster Hunter inspired. But the melee looks so cool. It looks like melee is your main way to take down these enemies. And you got this big long sword, and it just looks 10 times cooler than anything I've seen in Horizon in terms of melee combat. And I'm like, bro, no, this is going to be the Horizon game I wanted, isn't it? Isn't it? But obviously, when I said that this is a mobile game first and foremost, the greatest concern is monetization and the exploitation of it. So, I'm not trying to overhype it because this game could be a disaster on that front because it's being built for mobile. Neo, you're saying, by the way, is this using Decima? Looks nuts for mobile games. Surprisingly, it's not. No, I actually looked into this. I read an article from Gaming Bolt today, and the studio praised Decima engine, but this is Unreal Engine 5. And it seems, from what I understand, reading the interview, the developer NCSoft said that Guerrilla kind of helped them a little bit in like, specifically getting the art style right. So it seems like they had to build this game in Unreal Engine 5, and Guerrilla guided them visually to make sure that, okay, and I think you can see that. Like, dude, that's the thing. Looking at this, I mean, if you didn't tell me it wasn't Decima, I wouldn't have known, right? I can see a slight difference, but they did a really good job where even though it's built in Unreal Engine 5, it looks like Horizon, dude. Like 100%. I would have never known it wasn't in Decima. But let's finish out this video. I don't know, man. That looks pretty damn good. That looks pretty. Oh man, that looks good, dude. I'm sorry. That gameplay looks compelling. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong about this, but when I'm watching this gameplay, I feel like it seems like there's a dedicated like dodge mechanic, right? Like a dodge mechanic that looks similar to something you would get in maybe like Bloodborne or like Lies of P or something like that. Like a more Souls like dodge mechanic where you're just kind of, I mean, it's not exclusive to Souls games, obviously, but am I wrong with that? Because it's like, I feel like in the single player Horizon games, you don't have that. You can roll to get out of the way and dodge. But this looked more like almost like a Souls like boss battle, to me. Like that's kind of the vibe I was getting, where it would like come down to attack and you could just kind of sidestep, slash, sidestep. There's also a parry. Dude, I don't know, man. I'm like looking at this, I'm like, Guerrilla, bro, I'm nervous now. I'm nervous that your dedicated multiplayer game's not going to actually be as good as this one. But let me put this back here. But I will say there is, for anybody who, I don't know why it looks so orange all of a sudden. It should correct itself. A very orange looking stream right now. Anybody who is interested in this game but is upset. Hold on. Okay, yeah, but is upset that it's not available on PS5. There may be some hope yet for you. So one of the new pieces of information we have is I came across this from WCCF Tech. It says NCSoft would like to bring Horizon Steel Frontiers to PS5, but says it cannot make that call on its own. So it says, why a new game made in collaboration with one of Sony's first-party PlayStation studios based on a Sony-owned IP, a first-party IP, is not coming to their flagship console is the million-dollar question surrounding Horizon Steel Frontiers. But in a recent interview with Japanese publication 4Gamer, spotted by Eurogamer, we get a bit of insight into the answer behind that question. According to NCSoft executive producer Lee Song, the studio has no problem bringing Horizon Steel Frontiers to PS5. In fact, it wants to deliver the game on PS5, so why wasn't PS5 one of the listed platforms when it was revealed? Well, it appears we will have to ask Sony. NCSoft has no reason not to bring this game to PS5. We would like to do it, but it is not something we can decide on our own, so we would like to proceed with discussions. So, yeah, man. He says here, so if NCSoft is to bring Horizon Steel Frontiers to PlayStation consoles, that is he's pretty much saying it's up to Sony. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time saying that. He's pretty much saying it's not their choice. They don't get to decide. And I suspected this. I have to say, I suspected this. My stream low-key looks like a Black Ops 7 cover. No. It's cursed. I wasn't aiming for that, bro. Oh my God. You're right. You're totally right. What did I do? What kind of signal am I trying to send? Is this stream sponsored by Black Ops 7? Absolutely it's not. I wish it was. I'm not going to lie. I would take that sponsorship, but no, it's not sponsored by Black Ops 7. But yeah, I had suspected that Sony intentionally decided not to bring this game to PlayStation 5. I'll explain why in just a minute. Guys, take a moment, please, if you have not, and hit that like button. We are sitting at 108 likes, which is good. I appreciate that, but let's bump that up to 125. Again, we are going to be heading over to a members lounge in probably about 50 minutes or so. So close to an hour, we're going to be heading over to a members lounge. And obviously, I want my members to join me. We'll be immediately transitioning from this stream to that stream. So we have about 50 minutes where if you want to drop any more member gifts, if you want to become a member, if you want to be part of that, now would be the time to do it. Or you could wait 20 minutes. Like I said, we have 50 minutes. It's no rush, but we do have that time frame. They got to copy that combat for Horizon 3. Even the grapple was way smoother than Forbidden West. Dude, listen, man. I think... Here's what I think. I think Sony intentionally doesn't want this game on PS5 because Guerrilla is working on a second multiplayer game. We did cover this in the last stream, but in case you missed it, Jason Schreier did come out and he said, just so everybody's aware, this is not the multiplayer game that Guerrilla is working on. He says the multiplayer game that Guerrilla is working on internally is their next big thing. So we have two multiplayer Horizon games, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy to me. But what we're seeing of the first one here actually looks pretty good to me. It remains to be seen how it's going to do in terms of monetization, and like if that's going to ruin it potentially. But the gameplay looks compelling, and it looks straight up like a Monster Hunter Horizon game, which is what I always kind of expected a Horizon multiplayer game to look like and to play like. But it could be Horizon Steel Frontiers too. Yeah, so my theory is Sony does not want to bring this game to PS5 so it doesn't conflict with Guerrilla's game. I think Guerrilla is obviously making this game first and foremost for the PlayStation 5. It'll probably have a proper PC version, which is why this probably also isn't available on PC and it's just mobile. It seems like Sony's trying to create a separation. We talked about the Ratchet and Clank arena shooter that was announced. And there seems to be this separation of Sony wants mobile games to be mobile games. And they want their games that are their live service games that are going to be on console and PC to be just that. They want these things to be completely separate from one another. And from that perspective, I understand. that does make sense, mostly to me. Um, the way I view it is, at least in the case of Horizon, if Guerrilla Games puts out their next big thing, they're going all in with Horizon Live Service, and for some reason it just fails. Which, I don't know that that's likely. Horizon is not Concord. Horizon has a built-in fan base. I think Guerrilla would have to do something truly awful to make it so that their own live service multiplayer game immediately fails on PlayStation. But if, like, over time it just loses players and it doesn't go anywhere and the servers are dead and Sony basically shuts it down, if that does happen, I could see them going to NCSoft and saying, okay, let's port this game to console. My fear, and I'm not trying to doom and gloom, I'm just trying to be honest in that my fear is ultimately that the game that's not going to be on console somehow, some way ends up looking more compelling and more fun to play. Something maybe not more fun, more appealing to me, and I think a lot of other Horizon players, where it's like, that's the Monster Hunter type Horizon experience I've been waiting for, but I can't play it on my PS5. And then whatever Guerrilla Games puts out, it's like, this is more like, I'm not saying this is what it'll be like, I'm just throwing it out there. This is like Horizon Fortnite, or something like that. Building mechanics and all this stuff. And I'm like, I really hope it's not that. Because if it is that, I'm gonna be pretty upset about it. It's not gonna be the end of the world. It'll be what it'll be. But there will be a real disappointment in, like, damn, dude, I just wanted Monster Hunter Horizon. And mobile players are getting that, but console players are getting something else entirely. However, I do need to emphasize that I have no idea what this Guerrilla Games multiplayer looks like. The only thing we have, and we talked about this as well, it's just worth reiterating once again. The only thing we have is the the leaks that came out in 2020. And those are really difficult to gauge because we're talking about concept art. Concept art is just concept art. And again, this was like over 5 years ago. And we have these random builds where it looks like they were just messing with character creation. All I can say is if you've seen those leaks, my hope truly is that whatever art style and art direction they were going for, thank you, Irfan. Whatever they were going for, I hope that they decided to change it. I really do. Because I think what we're looking at, what we just watched, that gameplay, that looks like what Horizon multiplayer should look like. I do want to look something up real quick, though, to confirm this. Okay, so and I have an AI overview here. So take that for what it is. But it says the unannounced Horizon multiplayer game is expected to have a more stylized, brighter, and cartoony art style similar to Fortnite, which is a significant departure from the realistic art style of the single-player games like Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. Leaked alpha footage showed character models and machine designs that are rounder and more Pixar-like with a brighter color palette. I'm trying to... Okay, so... the AI is referencing... The AI is referencing the leak itself. I'm trying to find... Do you guys remember when Guerrilla Games, they basically put out a statement where they confirmed this? I'm trying to find that. So, Guerrilla Games Horizon multiplayer art style. See if anything comes up. I don't know why I'm having trouble finding this. Irfan, I don't know. You got to get on this, bro. No, that's from one day ago. Horizon multiplayer game concept art and prototype. No, not that. Yeah, I'm having a hard time finding this. I know this was a thing, though. I know I'm not crazy. I think this was like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, where basically like it caused some level of confusion because Guerrilla Games was essentially confirming there were 2 Horizon multiplayer games, but people were very like, wait, so like you're making 2 multiplayer games, or there's going to be an MMO and like a regular multiplayer? And that seems to be confirmed at this point, where it's like, yes, there's going to be an MMO and there's going to be a regular multiplayer. Irvin, I'm searching for a statement that Guerrilla Games put out. I think it was like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. They basically put out a statement confirming that they have multiple multiplayer games in development. And in that statement, they did confirm that one of these games will have a different art style and will be a departure from what we currently see and expect from Horizon. And I mean, it's not a big deal if you can't find it. I can't find it either. It is real though. It does exist. This was confirmed not that long ago. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I do think that this may be the confirmation, man, that yes, PS5 players are getting the cartoonized version of Horizon multiplayer, and mobile players are getting, you know, the Horizon version, like the Forbidden West slash original Horizon Zero Dawn version. I'm not saying that means it'll be a bad game, but I just still have this concern that there's going to be a very awkward situation. I have a fear that there's going to be an awkward situation where I'm over here as a PlayStation player wanting to play a mobile Horizon game over the Guerrilla Games game, multiplayer game. I hope that's not what happens. Used Khan. Dim, you're saying please play Rat Shaker trailers. Rat Shaker trailer. It's my game of the year. I'm not going to play that trailer right now. Used. I'm sorry. I'm not just going to bring that up. Why does it say my page is unresponsive? It says this page is unresponsive. What'd you do? Used, what did you do, bro? I'm not sure what's going on. Hold on, guys. My YouTube's acting very strange. Like, YouTube is straight up breaking right now. Are you guys good on your end? I just have to make sure the stream didn't die because it's acting really weird. Okay. Schmidt, you're saying it's good. Mrs. MBG says it's good. Irfan says, okay. That was really weird. What are my top 5 video games of all time? I'd have to think about that. Hellbound, you're saying it's all good? All right. I guess it's just on my end then. I don't know why I was doing that. But another piece of information that has gone seemingly completely under the radar, but I want to let you guys know about, is it has officially been confirmed that the Horizon franchise has sold over 40 million units. It has reached the 40 million milestone. It says NCSoft unveiled its unreleased new title, Horizon Steel Frontiers, at the G-Star 2025 game exhibition held in Bexco in Busan from 13th to the 16th. It's an MMORPG currently in development based on the Horizon series of open-world action-adventure games, with total sales reaching 40 million units. Designed to be playable on mobile devices, this new title was described by co-CEO Park Byung-moo during the Q3 earnings conference call as one that, quote, earned a standing ovation, end quote. It garnered significant attention as the main highlight of NCSoft's opening speech on the 13th. So, there we go. If there was any question, if people like the Horizon series, and I know that this is, I know that this is something that we've talked about before, but Boss is chewing on our. He's chewing the tree. Uh-oh. Guys, yeah, we need to make sure we hit that 25 mark for Boss because he's losing his mind out there, bro. I know it's a random Saturday stream. I'm sorry. He's banned for now, dude. I can't bring him in here. He's getting way out of pocket. I can't keep him under control. I can only keep him under control when I feed him treats. He's biting the branches. Oh. See what you guys are doing? But yeah, he's exiled for now. For now. But yeah, it's, 40 million is no joke. If anybody questions, like, is Sony wrong? Or is Sony making a mistake by being so focused on the Horizon series? The answer, objectively speaking, is no. The answer, objectively speaking, is this is one of their best-selling franchises. I think it's their fastest-selling new IP from last generation. Like it seems to be growing at a pretty steady rate. So, does that mean they should oversaturate? No, but yeah, that's true too, Irfan. You're saying it was just in July of this year they reported 38 million. It's selling good. Yeah, well, I mean, I am somebody who's always kind of expressed a certain level of trepidation, right? In the fact that I don't want to see Sony overdo it. I don't want to see them end up making people hate Horizon because it's just like, please make this thing go away. For a lot of people on the internet, and I'm emphasizing internet, people who leave comments, that seems to be the case. Well, again, when you look at the data, 40 million units sold. I mean, dude, that's in less than a decade. That's pretty substantial. Like that, like this is why Sony is okay having 2 Horizon live service games, one for mobile and one for console, because they're like, this is a big franchise. And yeah, it's even if I sat here and I said I would like to get something new from Guerrilla, or I would like to see them take a break from Horizon, it's hard for me to argue against that. It's like, we're at 40 million, we want to get to 60 million sales. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, I'll play Horizon 3. I mean, I just expressed interest in this mobile live service game. So, who am I to say? You think stuff like Lego Horizon and the games as a service damage the brand, though? I don't know. Unknown. I don't know how to quantify that. I'm not sure how we would quantify that. Like, I've seen people express that like it's damaging the brand, but if the only way we could potentially quantify brand damage is a drop off in sales and a lowering of interest and engagement, I mean, everything we've seen from Sony is like mostly the opposite. You know what I mean? Where I don't get it either sometimes. Like, they're like, for example, we saw Sony increase the price of the PS5 and I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt. Like, this is what's going to cause PS5 sales to hit a wall. And then we get the earnings report. It's like, no, they're doing just great. They're doing just fine. They're still on pace with the PS4. They're clearly going to hit. They even said they're going to hit 90 million by the end of their fiscal year. And I'm like, oh. So, if you're Sony and you look at that, you're looking at your numbers, you're like, we're doing something right. The data and the results are telling us we're doing something right. And when you look at something like Horizon hitting 40 million, yeah, I think that seems to be what it indicates, whether we like it or not. Whether we like it or not. Let me see if there's anything else I may have missed with her. Oh, so one other thing I do want to let you guys know about with this Horizon MMORPG. Again, we covered this in the last stream, but just in case you missed it, says it was just announced, Horizon Steel Frontiers, MMO, launching on mobile PC, yada, yada, yada. We've covered this extensively. But it says here, to make matters worse, developer NCSoft has now stated the game has been built partially using AI assistance, a topic that's divisive to say the least. This was discovered from an article on a Korean site called RuliWeb, where the development team was asked about several upcoming titles, among them Horizon Steel Frontiers. Answering questions about AI NPCs in the game, NCSoft confirms that AI is being used extensively throughout development. This is what they said, the full quote, translated quote. Within the company, we are testing and receiving help from basic NPCs in the process of cooperating or fighting together in combat. In our case, since it's an ARPG, we are receiving help in various aspects, such as determining the optimal number of players for gameplay rather than playing with a large number of users. Internally, we are also using AI assistance for production, from coding to art. It is being substantially implemented in actual development, and the technologies will likely be revealed one by one later. The Horizon development team is also the team that want to utilize AI the most. We are using it extensively and will be able to see the level of AI utilization increase significantly in games released after Aeon 2. So, yeah, this is just something that you should be aware of. I think for a lot of people, this is just another reason to avoid this game and to not partake in it. I think there's also a lot of people that don't care. I've seen that as well. Yeah, and my opinion on this is, I mean, I'm mostly indifferent to it, but at the same time, AI definitely there's a looming concern. MBG Mag he does a podcast with Colt Eastwood. He's saying that he believes what Jez Corden said because his source is hearing similar things. Okay. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if more and more people start to come out and talk about that. But yeah, I feel like the big thing, yeah, Titus, I think it's exactly that. Like you can't really stress too much about what you don't control and what you can't change. I just think it's going to be up to each individual to decide like where they stand with this. Where like if you're going to be against buying games with AI, like at all, you're going to probably end up not being able to buy many games going forward or in the future. Then people are going to take it to a different, to another level where it's like a more realistic place of, well, it depends on how the AI was used. Like in this case, they're saying that the AI was used for art. And for a lot of people, that's a big no-no. That's like not supporting that. The AI slop, so to speak. For me, I don't know. It's like one of these things where I'd rather not know. You know what I mean? I can't help but look at things a little bit differently when I find out that, oh yeah, we basically, because I do feel bad where it's like, yeah, we're basically replacing artists with this. It's like, well, that sucks, like, I don't know. It's just it like that's like one area where I feel like it may be taken too far potentially, but at the same time, I guess I've kind of preemptively accepted that I'm going to end up playing games inevitably that are using AI in a way that probably is damaging to people's livelihoods and how and certain developers in the industry. And it doesn't make it okay, but it's just, I don't know. There is this kind of the looming concern, I think, is that publishers are betting on most people not caring. And I think it is one of these things where it's like if we take a step back, most people probably don't care, If artists give their okay for AI to be used for TTS, or artists gave their okay for AI. Well, that's another thing I do want to mention too, is like I'm not looking very deeply into this, to be clear. So like so for example, I talked about Arc Raiders and I just saw some of the headlines, right? And I know it's my fault for just reading the headlines and not looking deeper, but the headlines basically saying like, Arc Raiders using voiceover or AI for their voiceovers and their voice actors or whatever. But then somebody informed me, they're like, all those voice actors like gave the green light, like they were okay with that. They got paid, for their voices to be used. And I'm like, oh, Okay, well, that definitely changes things, where it makes it a lot less egregious. It makes it sound a lot less worse than I guess it otherwise would sound. So, I have to admit I'm not paying that close attention to it, but I just figured you guys should know that, the team that's developing this game, they're not hiding that fact at all. They're flat out telling you, like, yeah, we're using it extensively. So it's a mobile game though too. So, again, I think most people who are playing on PS5 probably aren't going to be playing it. Sorry about that. And with that being said, we are going to move on to the final topic of discussion for today's stream. But before we do, we're going to be talking about the Game Awards. All right. But before we move on to the final topic, again, continue to hit that like button, guys. If you want to help the stream, if the only thing you can do to help the stream is hit that like button, please do so. We're sitting at 119 likes. We could easily get to 125. We're just 5 away, 6 away. And again, consider dropping some membership gifts. Become a member. If you want to drop any more support, we're going to be live for about 30 more minutes, and then we're going to move over to a members lounge. So if you are a channel member, make sure you stick around for that. Arc Raiders AI voice change is crazy. People are genuinely fooled by thinking they're playing with the opposite sex. They have a voice changer? I didn't know that. Or voice change? Titus, you're heading out, man. Yeah, we'll be back here tomorrow with another stream. Thank you for stopping by, and thank you for the super chat, by the way. Sony will never bring back SOCOM. Probably not. No, at this point, I don't think they're going to. But when it comes to the Game Awards, again, it was announced. Well, it says here from Push Square, it's that time once again, everyone. The Game Awards, Jeff Keighley's big year-ending awards ceremony and pseudo E3 conference nearly upon us. However, before we get there, we need to know which games are up for what awards. So on Monday, November 17th, all the nominees, will be revealed in a special announcement presentation. And the nominations will begin at 9 a.m. PST, 10 a.m. MST, 11 a.m. CST, and 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So for me, the nominees are going to be announced like as soon as I go live. Like I'll be going live at the time that I guess Jeff's video is going up. But it says, obviously, we don't know which games are getting nods and which are not until Monday, but it's fun to speculate. They say a hot ticket title this year will very likely be Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which surprised everyone earlier this year and won the hearts of many. We'd be very surprised if it isn't shortlisted for a few awards. PlayStation is always present at these things, so we reckon Death Stranding 2 and Ghost of Yotei are also likely to receive nominations across numerous categories. And then Split Fiction was an early year banger that many have slipped under the radar, or that may have slipped under the radar for some. However, It Takes Two won Game of the Year back in 2021, so we wouldn't count this one out. We also have to remember games like Hollow Knight Silk Song, and I'm sure there are others, like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. But this person says, my Game of the Year predictions, Expedition 33, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Death Stranding 2, Ghost of Yotei, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silk Song. Competition is tough this year. So, yeah, I'm curious what you guys think. Like not just which games are going to be up, but what the 6 games are going to be. Because there's only going to be, as far as I'm aware, there's only going to be 6 games. Could there be more? Somebody says Arc Raiders has to win Best Multiplayer at least. And it's worth noting that I think all the nominees we're going to be hearing about, it's not just like the Game Awards. GTA 6 will win Most Anticipated again. You think? I think it's, I think some of the biggest safe bet, if you're talking about who's not just going to get nominated, but who might take it, I think it's Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Petrov, that's a pretty good list. Yeah, I think most people's lists are going to look pretty similar. Like, there are just some games that I think are for sure going to be nominated. Clair Obscur, for sure. Death Stranding 2, I think, is for sure. Silk Song, for sure. One that I'm a little bit unsure of is like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I'm not convinced that will be up for Game of the Year. I'm not saying it does or doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying I'm not convinced it'll be there. Ghost of Yotei, I'm not entirely convinced will be up for Game of the Year. Will Kojima reveal his next podcast? We can only hope so, Irfan. We can only hope. Dan, you're saying Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 deserves it, but I agree it's sad because it's amazing. You think Silk Song won't get a nomination? Really? Why do you think that, Alvin? That's one that I would assume would be up there. I think Split Fiction will 100% be nominated for Game of the Year. Split Fiction was a game that really, I think, surprised people. And it is crazy to think that Hazelight, they did win full-blown Game of the Year in 2021 with It Takes Two, which was shocking. I think people were genuinely shocked by that. I was shocked by it. I was not expecting that. Blaze, you're saying Ghost of Yotei, definitely. I think Ghost of Yotei will get multiple nominations. I'm 50-50 on whether or not it gets nominated for Game of the Year. I do think it's Game of the Year material. I don't know that it does. Like, for me, it doesn't deserve to win over Death Stranding 2 or Clair Obscur, in my opinion. I really enjoyed Ghost of Yotei. I am still playing it, by the way. I said I wasn't sure if I'm going to platinum it. I've just decided I'm going to slowly chip away at it, and I'll get the platinum when I get it. But I don't think Yotei deserves it over Death Stranding 2. Death Stranding 2 is still my Game of the Year. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of the performances we get is going to be from Death Stranding 2. Yeah, I normally don't stream on Saturdays. I didn't stream yesterday, so I'm kind of making up for it today. You liked Yotei better than Death Stranding 2, but I can see it. Donkey Kong Bonanza, though, I'm not sure about that one. I didn't play it. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think Donkey Kong Bonanza is going to be up there for Game of the Year? Death Stranding 2 for the win. Expedition 33 winning, though. This year's Game of the Year is so predictably boring. It is pretty predictable. Yeah, I mean, the standout titles I think are fairly obvious. Are there, like, what titles do we think would be kind of like a little bit shocking? Like, oh, this game is actually nominated for Game of the Year. Nobody saw that coming. This was very unexpected. Expedition 33 fanboy is going to be mad when it doesn't win Game of the Year. I mean, every year people say they look forward to the meltdowns. I don't know why people care that much, you know? I'll be honest. I used to maybe care a little bit about like who won and who lost, but then eventually I realized like it kind of doesn't matter, you know? The only time I think it's somewhat justifiable to be a little bit upset is if a game that you firmly believe like deserves a Game of the Year nomination doesn't even get nominated and it's just kind of shunned or ignored. That I think is understandable, but I don't know. Every year there's always going to be like a kind of meltdown to some degree. The craziest I ever saw was with God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2. Now that was crazy. That was like a man. Your prediction: Expedition 33, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hades 2, Silk Song, Death Stranding 2, and I think Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I could see that. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty accurate list. Both studios are pubs that you care a lot about. What momentum does Nintendo have? Did Nintendo release a good game this year? I mean, people are saying Donkey Kong Bonanza is a Game of the Year contender. I haven't played it. I don't know if it's overhyped or not. Wild Wolf, you're saying Game of the Year this year is going to be a bloodbath? Split Fiction's going to win. Do you think now I could see people losing their minds if Split Fiction wins? You know, like Death Stranding doesn't win, Clair Obscur doesn't win. I could see people losing their minds. Especially, I think they would be especially upset because It Takes Two just won a couple years ago in 2021. You're saying Split Fiction deserves it more than Donkey Kong. Interesting. Expect Jeff to melt down live if he shows Half-Life 3. Dude, the rumors are, I don't know, they're a little bit all over the place for Half-Life 3. Some people are saying it's going to show up at the Game Awards. Others are saying it's going to be announced on its own. I think the biggest problem about Half-Life 3 being announced at the Game Awards is it overshadows literally everything else. You know? Which, you know, you can have an amazing game reveal at the Game Awards, but it's like if the show ends with Half-Life 3, it's like nobody's going to remember your game. Sorry. So it almost it does feel like it would almost be more respectful of Valve. And I'm not saying they have to they don't have to care, but it's like if they it's like let's just announce it on our own. Like you know, weeks before or weeks after. Away from the Game Awards. I think that would actually be better. Because, you know, I mean, a game like Half-Life 3 doesn't need to be at the Game Awards. I think we all know that. It's not necessary. I believe it, Irfan. I think that person needs to calm down, maybe seek some help. But I also do believe them. Next week is Half-Life's anniversary, 100% announcement next week. Oh, yeah, that would make sense. That's the time to do it. Yeah. Dude, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do because it's like I'm not a Half-Life person, but it's going to be impossible not to talk about. I guess this is just one of those situations where I'll be more interested to see what you guys have to say. Damon will be busy on his yacht. I mean, this is weird. It feels weird. I've been seeing people joke about the announcement of Half-Life 3 for my entire life. So it feels really weird to you know, to be sitting here and like, yeah, it's going to be announced next week. It's like, oh, really? I guess just like that then. Hold on, guys. Ten-year anniversary of GTA 5 on last gen as well. Oh wow. Is it wait, no. It's been longer than 10 years, right? What year did GTA 5 come out? Wasn't it like 2013? I know it didn't come out in 2015, so it's longer than that. If that happens, it means we got Half-Life 3, the announcement of Half-Life 3 before GTA 6. Well, yeah, I think the internet will break if Half-Life 3 is announced next week, no doubt about it. I I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out like how it could possibly live up to the hype. You know what I mean? I mean, we are talking about again, as I described it in my last stream, a mythical game, a game that I think for a lot of people is like never supposed to actually exist, and then it just will. And I mean, I think that there's like I don't think this is going to happen, but I think the possibility of like some people being let down or disappointed because of the way they built this game up in their head is possible. I'm not saying that I think that's going to happen. I just think it is a possibility. But, you know, you'd assume that if Valve had all this time developing it, you know, I'm sure that they are aware of how high the expectations are going to be. So, you know, if I had to assume one way or the other, I'm going to assume it'll live up to the hype mostly. And I think, you know, it would have to do something bizarre to let people down. But I say this as somebody who, you know, Half-Life 2 is better than most Sony games. Yo, Gothmog, ain't no way, bro. I don't know. I have no idea. Can Valve can well, I mean, dude, as funny as it sounds, like my biggest excitement, the thing about Half-Life 3 possibly getting announced next week that would excite me the most is that so this means we could get Left 4 Dead 3. That's what would excite me the most is this idea that like, yeah, man, now Left 4 Dead 3 is a possibility. I mean, Left 4 Dead 3 or 2 and 1 to me are, I mean, not just to me, but they're very beloved games. And I always found it strange. I didn't understand, you know, it was really my first encounter with a Valve game. And I remember like thinking like, that's weird. They did Left 4 Dead and then they immediately did Left 4 Dead 2. And then I'm like, all right, now time for Left 4 Dead 3. And it just never came. And then I started to become aware of like, oh, wait, no, this is a Valve thing. They don't go past 2. And I'm like, damn. And I remember there were like leaks and stuff about there was going to be a Left 4 Dead 3, but it got canceled or something, or it's scrapped or shelved, something along those lines. And I was like, that's a shame. You know, Left 4 Dead 3 could have been amazing, but if they're willing to actually, announce and release and make a Half-Life 3, then of course we could get a Half-Life 2. Why not? You know? Surely we can. Maybe that'll be next. For me, the question about Half-Life 3 is how many Steam machines do we think it's going to sell? Do you think that'll be like a quote-unquote system seller? And it looks like we have a $10 super chat from Supremacy 101. Thank you for that, buddy. And yeah, guys, just a heads up, we're going to be doing a countdown timer now. I have to bring this up. Supremacy, I'm going to read what you're saying, but I'm doing a countdown timer. We have 15 minutes before we move over to a members lounge. Okay? The countdown is starting now. So it's going to immediately take me and all of my members into another stream. This stream is going to be talking about Call of Duty Black Ops 7, and we're going to try to answer the question, is Call of Duty Black Ops 7 a dumpster fire? Is it a dumpster fire? So this is essentially going to be the last call. If you want to drop any more support, especially when it comes to members, okay, if you want to drop any member gifts, if you want to become a member, we're sitting at 10. I think we can do better than this personally. I think we could at least get to 25. I'm not going to pressure you guys, though. It's up to you. But if you want to, give anybody else access to that, now is the time to do it. And Supremacy, I'm going to read your super chat. Devil Shooter, what is this you're linking? It's a YouTube video. What video is this? I'm curious. And I do apologize. I know that there's a lot of people who are going to miss this stream entirely because they're like, well, you're streaming on a Saturday. We will be back tomorrow with another stream, so you don't have to worry about that. It's my bad. I normally don't stream on Saturdays. And Supremacy, before I read your super chat. Oh, a Mighty Keep video. Another one. Damn, dude. Second Son, what's going on, man? Saying you just got here? Yeah, I'm sorry, dude. I know I don't normally stream on Saturdays, but yeah, we got a countdown going on. We got 13 minutes. All right, 13 minutes. By the way, I can't stop that countdown timer. So I am letting you know that if you need to drop anything else before we move to the members lounge, you have to do it within that 13-minute time frame. And we have Cool Kid becoming a member. Thank you so much for that, Cool Kid. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
He renews his membership. Back to Greatness Awaits. That brings us up to 11. So we'll see. We'll see if we can hit that goal before the timer concludes. And let me read the super chats here. We have Supremacy 101. He says, Sony pulling back its tentpole IPs from PC is the most logical thing to do, especially when they comp intents to monopolize and control gaming and spending habits via OS and services. And you continue by saying Nintendo hasn't I think that meant to say compromised and are revered for it. Well, at least PlayStation still has Demon's Souls Remake, GT, Astrobot, Bloodborne, Dreams, and a few others. And Second Son 90. Yo, Second Son 90. He says, I'm here and he just dropped 20 membership gifts for you guys.
Holy shit.
We need to see some W's and some 20 bombs and some member train emojis in the chat. Second Son 90, thank you so much for that, man. It's been slow going with the memberships, but he just brought us up to 31. 31. So we will be able to give Boss some treats before we head out of here, which he's going to be very happy about that. So if you just received a membership gift from Second Son, you will be able to access the Members Lounge, which is happening in about 11 and a half minutes. And we'll see, man. We're sitting at 31. We need 19 more to go. Can we hit 50 in that 10-minute mark? Well, Second Son 90's coming in clutch. Let me just open the door and let Boss in. And you know what's weird, though? This is kind of strange. What? Hold on. What is this? Cool. It says, so Cool Kid renewed his membership, but now it says it was retracted. It says message retracted. What's up with that? Did it get rejected or something? It's still here on the counter. I'm not sure what's going on there. Irfan, I'll probably save that. I'll probably save that for tomorrow. But Supremacy, before I let Boss in, I will say, yeah, so Supremacy, I think you came in here a little bit late. I will say when this stream wraps up, come back when the timestamps are up. We discussed this extensively for like almost 2 hours. And I guess what I'm just saying is I cover pretty much everything you mentioned here. I do think there is logic here. I do agree with you. Chris, you're saying I'm trying to super chat, but it's not letting me. This is, dude, it is becoming painful. The amount of people that are telling me like they're trying to super chat, they're trying to show support and they cannot. Well, what I can recommend, Chris, you don't have to do this, but I'll just announce this for anybody else. If YouTube's giving you a hard time and you're trying to super chat, because I've seen quite a few people where they're trying to and it's not letting them, at the top of the chat, there's a direct donation link. That's done through Streamlabs. It's completely safe. You know, Streamlabs is what I use to stream. Many people use that as an alternative, and you do get a slightly longer message you can leave as well. That's a thing about the direct donations. Not much longer, but you get a few more characters. So keep that in mind. I'm going to let Boss in, and we'll give him his treats. All right. Here we go, boss. I know you've been waiting. We will feed the beast.
Boss, do you read me? It's time to feed the beast.
He has returned from his exile. Here you go, man. And again, Second Son, thank you so much for dropping 20 memberships. We had a couple people dropping 5 bombs earlier. I think it was Raven and Schmidt. So I'm really happy to see that we could at least get to the 25 mark. Again, I'm still going to push as much as I can. We got 8.5 minutes. We could do it. We could do it. We need 19 more. A 20 bomb will do it. Second Son, don't feel pressured. You already dropped 20. That's a lot, bro. Yeah, the Mighty Keith video. The last Mighty Keith video I watched was pretty damn funny. You tried it too. You thought it was because you said something that violated the guidelines, but I don't think so. Planet Clippy, you're saying you tried dropping a super chat and it still didn't let you? Yeah, this is concerning. The amount of people that I've seen today. And you know what's crazy too is I've seen a drop in super chats in the past couple weeks. And I just thought it was because, like, I'm sure a part of it is because, you know, some people just they don't feel the need to super chat. But I do wonder when I see stuff like this, how much of it is that people would super chat, they're just literally not allowed to. It's very frustrating, man. Your membership expired and didn't get a membership, so I unfortunately may not be able to join the lounge today, MBG. Probably going to go goon and read. Damn, we got to save Planet Clippy. Guys, Planet Clippy, he needs a membership gift, clearly. We need to help him out. We need to help him out. Can we do it? Let me see. Good God. Yeah, Mrs. MBG is saying in the chat that we're going to basically be doing a Thanksgiving-esque Morning with the Misses this upcoming Friday. It's before Thanksgiving in the U.S. anyway. But that'll be the only time we can do it. So, you know, we'll do maybe more gaming trivia. I don't know. No, I did not buy Black Ops 7. I did not buy Black Ops 7. Alvin with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, I've had to edit a bunch of chats because YouTube is getting strict on what they allow in chats. That might be it. I mean, I know you can't like tell me because you had to edit it, but I'm like really wondering what did you have to edit, dude? Because like Alvin, I don't know you that well, but I've never seen you type anything even remotely. I don't understand. I mean, I still appreciate you dropping the super chat and letting me know. Yeah, I don't understand YouTube sometimes. YouTube can be very frustrating. Like I don't know why it seems like it's always having issues. Let me see. Community moderation. So I'm looking over on my community moderation, comments on new videos and posts, moderation, none. Messages in your live chat, moderation, none. And just so you know, you can choose between none and basic. Basic says hold potentially inappropriate messages. I don't even have that clicked. So, and when it comes to my blocked words, believe me, they are only some of the worst words, you know, not stuff that would not go. I'm pretty sure YouTube would automatically flag, but just in case. So yeah. And Second Son 90, bro. There ain't no way. Second Son 90 just came in and dropped another 20 bomb on you guys. I need W's in the chat. We got 4.5 minutes before we move over to the members lounge. It's automatically going to take us there. And Second Son 90 came in and dropped 40 membership gifts for you guys today. We were sitting at 10 for like the whole stream practically, and he just came in and dropped 40. So Second Son 90, seriously, thank you so much for that, man. That's incredible. You just got us over the 50 mark, and we did it. We crushed the goal. I wasn't sure we were going to do it. I got to be honest with you, man. I wasn't sure, but I'm like, it's a Saturday. I don't normally stream on Saturdays, and you came in clutch, Second Son. So huge props to you for that, buddy. And I'll give you another one here. Good job. Lady Gamer, you're heading out. Well, thank you for hanging out with us. And I did miss a super chat from TP who says, do you like Call of Duty or Battlefield 6? I do like both. I enjoyed Black Ops 6 last year, but I enjoyed Battlefield 6 as well. I did not buy Black Ops 7, though. And then you say here, you're saying, well, you said, did you MGS? Did you Metal Gear Solid? I did Metal Gear Solid. Thank you for asking. Also, Game Awards predictions. We talked a little bit about our Game Awards predictions. We talked about it for about 10 or 15 minutes. So you may have to come back and check the timestamps when they're up if you want to know what's going on there. We'll be talking more about the Game Awards going forward, so you don't have to worry about that. But guys, yeah, make sure you're hitting the like button as well. We have so guys, again, we have 2 minutes and 40 seconds. If you are a channel member, it's going to automatically redirect us to a members lounge, and we're going to be reacting to some Black Ops 6 videos to determine if this game is as bad as they make it sound. Is it a dumpster fire this year? So please look forward to that. If you're a member, it's going to automatically move you over. When it seems like this stream ends, just stick around. It's just moving you over to another stream, okay? And And this is truly going to be the last call. Second Son 90 came in and dropped 40 membership gifts for you guys. We hit 50. Thank you again so much for that. But this is truly the last call. If you need to drop anything, you need to do it right now, because once that 2 minutes is up, it is out of my hands at that point. All right. And I want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter, by the way. He does the timestamps for the streams. If you guys see him in the comments of this stream with those timestamps, give him some thanks, show him some love. I know he appreciates it. Devil Shooter, thank you for what you do. And again, a big thank you to everybody who shows support on the channel. We covered all of our topics today. If you dropped any super chats, any direct donations, any memberships, if you became a member, thank you so much. We are totally fan funded. You guys are essentially the sponsors of the channel, and I couldn't do it without you. I mean that, so thank you. And Devil Shooter, we'll probably react to the Mighty Keep video tomorrow or on Monday. A few people have recommended it to me. Yeah, he's been on point lately, man. He's been definitely making me laugh. I've been enjoying it. There will be a title and thumbnail change when the member stream goes live, by the way. Is getting a membership like a slot machine where it's random as to who gets one or they are awarded? YouTube encourages engagement. The more you engage, the higher the chance is. If you comment on videos, you get a higher chance. But it is mostly, like, you know, you can't really truly predict it. For example, like, who was it recently? Shadowlink didn't have a membership gift. He was trying to get one. We got like 40 member gifts, still didn't get one. He dropped 100 member gifts and he ended up gifting himself. So it goes to show how, like, you could be 5 away, you could be 30 away, you could be 100 away. But guys, we are transferring over to the members lounge in 10 seconds. Again, thank you for showing up. Thank you for watching. To all my members, I'll see you over there in just a couple of seconds. To everybody else, I hope you consider becoming a member. If not, I will see you in tomorrow's stream.